This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
This is Mike, and you can find me at I am Mike White on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And finally, you can follow all three of us on Letterboxd at Obsessive Viewer, Obsessive Tiny, and I am Mike White. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and with me today are my co-hosts, Mike and Tiny. Hey, guys.
Hey, we're here.
We are. Do you guys know when the last time the three of us were on a podcast together?
When I was at your house in July?
Yep, episode 242.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this is episode 266. So
Far too long ago.
Yeah, so we need to rectify that in the new year, guys. Speaking of which, New Year, New Year, guys. That's fine.
New year, new podcast.
Yeah.
Do you want to start a new
Not
podcast?
really.
Oh,
God
okay.
damn it, why'd I do that?
Damn it.
Yeah.
I planted the seed.
There are enough.
Yeah, I forgot to say happy, though. I don't know why, but happy New Year, everyone. To you guys and to our listeners and everything, and any new listeners we've picked up. If this is your first time listening, you're in for a treat, because this is like the most Obsessive Viewer, the Obsessive Viewer podcast is in our year in review episode.
You know what's funny? I've always loved the name Obsessive Viewer, and I kind of like our thing, and we used to do kind of like topic-heavy episodes, and we've kind of skewed and done more reviews and this and that. But it wasn't until kind of recently, I want to say in the last couple of years, where we kind of explained like why we're called the Obsessive Viewer, like almost what sets us apart, and it's this episode.
Absolutely.
This is an episode where, if you've never heard us before, you get our stats, you get us talking about our listening habits, so you get the movie appreciation and the obsession with film that we all have, and that I hope that you guys are interested in. But again, what makes us the Obsessive Viewer podcast is you see literally how obsessed we are with not only watching these, but talking about them, and then finally keeping track of them, which is kind of the big thing.
Yes, and to kind of leapfrog off of that, just real quick, we've been talking about this website a lot over the last year, but Letterboxd, Letterboxd is like a social media site for film lovers that you can have your own diary, you can post reviews and stuff. Elsie Fisher actually referenced Letterboxd on, I think, a Jimmy Kimmel interview or Jimmy Fallon or something. Cause he asked her, like, hey, have you seen or have you read any reviews or anything? And she's like, yeah, I read Letterboxd all the time. I've read them on Letterboxd. And then he's like, what's Letterboxd? And she's like, I don't know. I think it's a critic thing. I don't know. But
of
anyway,
8th grade, she was reading reviews of 8th grade.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So she could have read one of our reviews. Did you guys review it on Letterboxd?
I think
I didn't.
that I did briefly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Elsie, if you're listening, congrats on all your success.
And stick around, because you're probably going to hear us talk about your movie.
Oh, yes.
You will.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so if you're not on Letterboxd, if you're listening to this podcast and you dig all of the stuff you're about to listen to in this 7-hour marathon podcast, you should definitely look into going on Letterboxd, because it's amazing. And we're all pro members. That gives us stats and everything. And like for me, and I'm sure you guys as well, it made compiling my stats at the end of the year so much easier.
Yeah, we used to do this, stuff you're about to hear. We used to do this by hand.
Yep.
And kind of like double check and triple check and bounce them kind of back and forth to, did we get this right or that right? And Letterboxd kind of does that for us now, which is awesome. By the way, you can follow Letterboxd users, and it's all super easy. I am Mike White, and the other guys are just their Twitter handles. Is that correct, Tiny? Are you Obsessive Tiny on Letterboxd?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Yeah. So just if you found us on Twitter, you can find us same place on Letterboxd.
Exactly.
It's nice to have this digitized mobily. That's the biggest thing I think about Letterboxd for me anyways, because for years it was just on my laptop and like a Word document on a laptop, which was fine, but you have it mobily now, which is so much nicer.
Well,
Absolutely.
It's a conversation piece. I was out to dinner with a friend of mine, Jake, and we were kind of looking at the best horror movies of the year, and he's like, I don't know, let me see your list. And I was like, well, don't mind if I do. And it's nice to have just the thumbnail pictures of the film posters. You can kind of, there's a visual aesthetic to experiencing what these films looked like on your phone. One of the most useful things for me is I have accidentally repurchased 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 movies in the past. And so recently I created a list on Letterboxd of my want list for purchases. And when I buy one, I take it off that list. And now there's no more fear of, do I already own this movie?
Nice.
It's awesome.
Nice. And we'll talk about Letterboxd in more detail later in this episode, but just, it's great. And we have kind of teamed up with Letterboxd to an extent. We're not getting paid at all for promoting it at all. We're just huge fans of it, but we are in a position where we can give Letterboxd users pro memberships. And so we'll be running, in 2019, we'll be running more contests for pro memberships.
Right.
So stay tuned to that. Stay tuned to the podcast for that, this year. But, before we get into the meat of this episode, just real quick, how was your guys' 2019, both personally and, privately? I don't know. Publicly?
Mine was
Go
good.
first, Mike.
My second son was born early on in the year, March 5th. And that was super exciting. My niece was born 2 days before that, so we call them the twins. Those are kind of the big things that happened. Oh, we also moved. So I guess that's another big thing. To just another house here in town. Other than that, it was really good. I don't want to talk about it too much. The Bears had a really good season, but they lost yesterday, so I'm still stinging.
Yeah.
It stings a little bit. But other than that, great year. Movie watching, I'll kind of talk about that a little more when we get to the stats.
Sweet. And Tiny, how was your year?
It was a little rough. I had a skin infection for 4 months that was very painful. Had to go to the ER twice for that, and took five courses of antibiotics. But it's finally under control, so that's good.
Nice.
And I was diagnosed with the diabetes towards the end of the year. But both of those things are much better than they were even a month ago. So 2019's looking up, so that's good. Yeah, just pretty good all around actually for the new year. 2018, like I said, a little rough, but
nice.
Yeah.
I have a big bottle of Purell next to me anytime he comes over to record now because I don't want the skin infection.
I know, right?
But no, I had a really good year actually. I got a new job within the same company that I work for, and that kept me from I'm no longer working from home, but I'm in a much better position in the company, and I am really loving it. It's awesome. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got going on.
Nice.
Good deal.
Which I'm happy with. Okay, so let's dive right into what people are here to listen for. First of all, damn it, I forgot this. I was a guest on our friends, The Nerds You're Looking For podcast. You can find that at thenerdspodcast.com. Basically, I did my top 10 list with Pat and Tyler over there. It's kind of a yearly tradition that I go do a guest spot over there, and talk about my top 10. And spoiler, well, I guess not really spoiler, but kind of a tip my hat to later in this episode. This was, I think, the first year in 5 or 6 years that I've been guesting on that podcast that the top 10 list that I said on that podcast is the same as the one that I have on this one. Because usually they record at the end of the year, and it's when I'm still compiling stuff, so it's kind of a rough draft top 10.
Yeah.
But spoiler for my viewing stats, but I had a really good year and I had a very well-rounded top 10. But yeah, so let's go into our viewing stats. Mike, do you want to get us kicked off?
Yeah, I will. Do you have kind of an outline for exactly which stats you want to know about? I'll just go through my list. So
Okay.
I watched 124 total movies, which is to say unique movies, because as far as my diary entries are concerned, I logged 130 movie viewing instances onto my Letterboxd, which is to say I sat down and watched a feature film 130 times. The other number, 124, is the number of unique movies, which is to say, holy shit, I only rewatched 6 movies this year. Every other movie I watched was a unique to 2018 movie watching experience. Here are the 6 movies I watched, and only twice. I didn't watch any movie more than twice.
Oh, wow.
Avengers Infinity War, Hereditary, Halloween 2018, The Strangers Pray at Night, Won't You Be My Neighbor, and A Quiet Place. Other than that, every other movie I watched, I only watched the one time that year.
Wow.
So that 120 or 124 or 130, however you want to count that, that's 106 first-time viewings, 106 movies I've never seen before. And I'm always really proud of that, my percentage of movies that are first time for me. I think that it's more of a goal of mine to watch as many new movies as possible. And so it always feels good when that number is higher than movies I've seen before. Clearly, horror is my most watched. Well, maybe not clearly, but if you were looking at my list, it's pretty clear that horror is my most watched genre, which is a stat you can look at on Letterboxd. And so I watched 77 horror films this year. The next line down is 59, which is thriller, and you could almost say those are pretty similar anyway. 34 drama films and 29 comedy films, 21 action, 20 sci-fi, and so on and so forth. So heavy on the horror, heavy on the thriller. This is, unfortunately, my lowest year on record. I went back and looked.
Oh, interesting.
I wouldn't say by far, well, by about 20 movies, this is my lowest year. And I think that's a result, well, it's obviously a result of having 2 kids.
Right. And moving, I'm sure.
And moving was kind of a big part of it. So my free time is so valuable that that for several months at a time, I'll kind of be into a certain hobby, and that's all I'll do. 2018 was kind of like, if I wasn't with the kids, it was like the year of video games. I played a lot of video games this year. And so I was able to put those on hold for Shocktober, where I was able to beef up a lot of my numbers, but I'm not able to make a lot of time to just sit down, with a movie. I did have, and this is always a number that makes me feel good, 53 theater viewings.
Nice.
Okay, now,
awesome.
Longtime listeners know that I do movie night, every Thursday, and we skip holidays. We skip, Christmas and Thanksgiving, and if I go on vacation or he goes on vacation, we skip those. So I saw maybe 3 or 4 non-movie night theater viewings. Again, it's just a case of not being able to get out, but luckily I had made a point to get out on Thursdays. My highest month was October, obviously, with 30 movies. That's when Shocktober was there. I always aim for 31, and it was a big F minus fail. I only hit 30, but whatever. And then in May, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, summer always slows me down quite a bit. I don't know, this summer I was really into the Friday the 13th video game again, so I was kind of into playing that instead of watching movies. And so I watched 4 in May. That was my lowest month. So that's my year in stats, movies.
Sweet. And just to clarify, when you say that this was your lowest year in terms of movies, you said it was by 20 movies. Is that by 20 individual movies or 20 viewings?
I don't know. I'd have to go back. My guess is viewings.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Tiny, how about your stats?
Yes. I'm glad that Mike led, or like that Mike didn't have like a really good year either, because I didn't have a really good year. But it was better than last year. I think last year, I don't even know if I cracked 100 last year.
You didn't.
I didn't crack 100 last year. This year, my total viewings were 117.
Nice.
Yeah, which, not very good. So my goal kind of is to get at least 150 a year, and wasn't even close to that. So, the only statistic that I'm happy with this year is that I'm pretty happy with my, the movies that I didn't get to see. So, the 2018 releases that I was able to see.
Okay.
I was pretty happy with that.
I thought, for some reason I heard that and I thought that my only one that I'm really proud of is the ones that I just didn't get to see.
No, my regrets. That,
I feel
that
really
list.
good about skipping the turds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with my regrets list. That's what I'm trying to say. So
Gotcha.
I crammed in a lot of 2018 viewings towards the end and I was happy with that. So 117 total viewings. First viewings was 85 and 32 I had seen before. But, draw attention to Mike's statistic where he talked about
Hit me, baby.
rewatches in 2018. I think I only had 2.
Oh, wow.
I think.
Okay.
And they were both on your list. Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's it. I didn't look through and actually gather, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head. So, and then this is the statistic that kills me the most is I only saw 7 movies in the theater this year.
Ah, yes.
That is way too low. My goal every year, again, the bare minimum, I want to see at least 12 so that I can say that I saw one a month.
Okay.
But I didn't even get close to that. So that's not the best statistic, but, for break it down by month, my best month was July, which surprises me because Mike said, the summer always slows me down. So yeah, July I had 23 viewings.
Wow.
And my worst was a tie between March and May for 5.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, that's about it. I think we can break down some of the other stuff when we go into other Letterboxd stats.
Matt,
so.
Tiny mentioned he kind of sets a goal for himself for 12 theater viewings a year. Now, I know that you're going to hit us with your surprising stats. And AMC A-List was very good to you, but before these movie subscription services, did you have a theater goal, in 15, 16, and 17?
I really didn't. I really didn't. Because I wanted to see as many movies as I could, but I didn't set I want to see this many movies or this many.
And truth be told, you've always kind of been a homebody, at least as far as I've known you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that being able to see movies the last couple of years, it's been pretty consistent that me and Kyrsten would go see movies pretty much every weekend. And that's basically what we would hang out and see a movie in the theater. So that really bolstered my numbers and everything. But should I go ahead and hit you guys with my stats?
I'll just say my goal is always 52. I want to always maintain that I see one a week because I do movie night. I know that I skip a few, but I always want to make up for those with date nights with my wife or other friends or whatever.
Sure.
You guys saw one or two with you, Matt, this year? Maybe 3?
This year I don't think we saw any.
Well, over the summer we saw Pirates.
That was last year.
Was that last summer?
Or that was 2017. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, nothing then.
Yep. But okay, so a peek behind the curtain, we have divulged our top 10 lists to one another, but we have not divulged our stats to one another. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah. I'll say they're searchable.
Yeah, you can find them, but I have I'm excited. So anyway, this was my best year.
No kidding. Yeah.
Still not as good. Well, you'll see. So I was going to say not as good in terms of the total viewings as Tiny's famous 2014 or 2014?
2014.
Yeah.
366. But
366.
I had a total.
Was that a leap year? Did you watch an extra one because it was a leap year?
No. I don't think so. Was it? I don't even know.
Was it?
No. 16 was the leap year.
I don't know.
Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But anyway, my total viewings for 2018 was 357 viewings.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
That is that is a total amount of movies, so not counting rewatches or anything.
Instances of movie watching, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So that is 320 individual titles. So I rewatched a total of 37 movies, repeat viewings. I'll jump down real quick and say that the repeat viewings that I had the most viewings of, surprisingly enough, one of my favorite movies, they came together. I watched 5 times in 2018.
Okay. 5 times?
Yes, and the reason is because for like half the year I was working from home, and I would just have it playing in the background and watching it in between calls. I watched it with Kyrsten one day, and then I watched it a few times just kind of while I'm editing the podcast or anything.
So to derail you, because I'll let you keep going, but
sure.
Like, do you have a loose percentage of your attention you have to give a movie for you to count it as a watched movie?
Yes. So like a perfect example, I don't even remember what movie it was that I was watching. The last a couple months ago, I had something playing in the background while I was editing, and like it got to the last act, and I was like, I haven't been paying attention to it, so I didn't log it at all.
Right.
But the times that I do, like I said, when I'm like working, and like when I was in the call center, I would be working and I'd have it playing on my laptop, and basically the nature of a call center is if, there's no calls coming in, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
So I would be sitting there watching it, and then when a call comes in, I'd pause it and then do my work and then
you'd pause it, okay.
resume it. Yeah,
well, because there are a few times where I've done this for the last several years where like at the end of a school year when I'm like finishing up the yearbook, which is like a week at home by myself just fixing pages, I'm always playing Friday the 13th over and over and over again.
Sure.
But I got to a point where I just stopped counting those because I was always like, I'm not receiving these movies. The only reason I know them is because I know them by rote.
It's a difference. There's a distinct difference between watching something or playing something as ambient noise versus watching something while multitasking.
Okay.
So there have been movies that I had playing in the background that I wasn't paying attention to that I did not log.
Okay.
To answer your question. And most of the time when I do stuff that requires more attention than I can focus on a movie, I just watch a TV show. Like I throw on The Office or something.
Okay. All right, hit us with those stats, baby.
Yeah. Okay. So they came together 5 times. Weird sentence. Avengers Infinity War 4 times. And The Big Sick 4 times. My highest genre was drama with 145 movies, comedy with 141, and thriller with 89.
Wow, you dropped off a horror.
I know, yeah. It's the last few years, man. It's been kind of rough with me watching horror because I haven't watched that much. Yeah, but rewatches in 2018, I rewatched. I had 151 rewatches. And then, okay. I'll skip theater viewings for just a second. The amount of movies that were released in 2018 that I watched and therefore had this amount of movies to cull my top 10 from, I watched 109 2018 released movies.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And finally, my theater viewings. Sorry, excuse me. My theater viewings were 87.
Jesus.
Good Lord.
87 movies in the theater. That counts. There were, I don't know offhand if this, I watched 11 Heartland Film Festival movies, but 4 of them were screeners that I watched at home. But yeah, 87 theater viewings.
That's never going to be beaten.
It's too many. Honestly, it's too many.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I'll get into my... Do you guys mind if I go through my A-list stats real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so 87 theater viewings, and I joined AMC A-List on June 28th of 2018. So I had AMC A-List for half the year. A full, like I had it for 6 full months. When I had A-List or I have A-List currently, but, once I got A-List from then until the end of the year, I saw 56 movies with A-List. I had 56 screenings. I watched 3 of them like a second time. So this is where we get really nerdy. The amount that I spent on A-List, the subscription itself, over the course of those 6 months was a total of $139.65. A-List, for whoever doesn't know, we get 3 tickets per week from AMC that we can use for any format, any screening. And it resets on Fridays, and you get 3 tickets a week for $19.95 a month. Currently, that's the price now. I'm sure that they're going to increase it this year. But the total amount spent was $139.65 on A-List. I calculated the total ticket price. So I took all 56 movies and calculated how much each ticket would have cost me had I not had A-List. I saw, in terms of ticket prices, $635.50 worth of movies.
Jeez.
So, in some alternate universe where I was willing to watch or was willing to pay for that much, it's a difference or savings of $495.95.
That's
wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. And this is the more sad one, but I calculated the runtime, guys. With A-List, I spent 4.5 days of my life in the theater.
Oh my God.
And that's just with A-List.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the 56 screenings. And yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited about it because A-List is great, and I love the idea of subscription theater screenings and stuff. But I'm kind of terrified at what this means for 2019 because I will have A-List for a full year. And it's like, on one hand, A-List and like being able to go see a movie whenever I want again without like budgeting for it per se. On one hand, it definitely kind of reawakened, I guess, my kind of love of going to the movie theater. Like, it's probably my favorite thing to do is go to a movie theater, sit with a group of strangers and experience a story. And I'm kind of afraid that maybe I'll get burnt out a little bit, but I might try to pace myself a little more. And because I kind of have this thing in my head where it's like, okay, well, I have 3 tickets I can see this week. What 3 movies am I going to see?
But even if you get burnt out, or maybe I don't know how you work, but like, say you shoot for 3 a week for the whole year, like your goal is 160 or whatever, 162. Which is ridiculous. But like, even if you get burnt out, using 1 a week is still saving money on A-List.
Exactly.
Which is why I am a member. Yeah.
And like I have a spreadsheet and everything that has formulas to calculate everything. If say for sake of argument that I keep the A-List subscription, but I don't see any more movies until the 1-year anniversary of getting A-List on June 28th. So I go from now until June 28th not having seen any movies with A-List. I will still have gotten my money's worth out of the amount that I pay for the 12 months of A-List. I don't have the figure in front of me, but like, yeah, it's already paid for itself, for me. So yeah.
Man, that's huge.
Yeah, I know.
Have you ever read Patton Oswalt's Silver Screen Fiend?
No, I listened to Zombie Spaceship Wasteland.
Okay. So that,
yeah.
it's pretty different. Silver Screen Fiend is about like this 4 or 5, maybe more years of his life where he would go to 1 or 2 a day, and he would cancel plans with people and go see movies. And he hit numbers akin to that.
Wow.
And I think you're giving him a run for his money there, but if you maintain this, we'll see.
Yeah.
If you if next year, if you set a goal for 2 weeks, that's 104 movies. Mm-hmm. So I think you would have to double up. You would have to see some movies twice because, in the doldrums of February and September.
True.
And that's the thing.
There are not 3 movies worth seeing per week.
No.
Yeah.
I have one more ticket this week because I have a ticket for the Upside on Thursday. And I have one ticket this week, and I'm like, I could try to see Mary Queen of Scots again, but I wasn't really into it when I saw it before, and I had a bad experience with the theater, so I just don't really feel like seeing it. And then there are a couple other movies that I know Kyrsten wants to see, and I'm kind of saving for that. But what was the other? I went ahead and just got a ticket for Spider-Man again. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, that's going to be kind of a game time decision. Like, do I really want to go see Spider-Man again? Because I do want to see Spider-Man again, but it's more like, am I just seeing it just to use the ticket? Right. Or do I actually have a desire?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway, for my monthly stats, my highest month, oddly enough, was August with 60 movies.
Jeez.
That is insane.
And let me kind of, I don't know. That isn't that is because when I got my new position in the company, I do have a job in which I can have headphones in and I can have a movie playing on my phone while I'm working. And that does I do devote enough attention to count it as a viewing because it's not like I'm sitting there watching 4 movies each day at work for the entire 8 hours. It's I'll throw on one movie while I'm working, and it's usually a familiar one. Mm-hmm. So a decent amount of those movies are movies that I watched that my attention was divided, but it wasn't divided enough to where I couldn't follow the plot.
Man, I'd have to check my stats for my 2014 year when I watched 366, but I don't think I ever hit 60 movies in a month.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. I think I hit 50 something, but wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, my lowest months were May and June. May I had 9 viewings. 9.
Oh wow!
I watched 9 movies.
Quite pedestrian.
Yes, and in June I had 7.
Jeez.
Okay.
Definitely slumming it in the summer months.
Well, it gets hot.
Yeah. Well, also there are a couple extenuating circumstances. In June, I went to Vegas, so that's 4 days of no movie watching.
Right.
I got a new job. When I got back from Vegas was my first day. My first day at my new job. So that month was a lot of learning the ins and outs of a new job and everything. So it's a lot of kind of mental exhaustion. I come home and I don't really want to do anything, including watch movies. So there are some extenuating kind of circumstances there.
So May was bad for all 3 of us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
it's a theme.
It's weird because I would need to go back and check on this, but I kind of wonder if is that a regular thing that we experience?
I think it is for me, probably. It's a race during that month.
Yeah,
so.
There's something for me about it being summer. Our days kind of get a little longer, and we have plans. Mm-hmm. My wife stays up a little later. I don't know. There's something more comfy about I got to work the next morning, so I'm just gonna throw on a movie before bed kind of deal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, this May I spent 4 weekends in a row building a deck by myself.
Right.
So that contributed to that because I wanted to get it done before the race. So
yeah. So yeah, I think that's my stats. Those are my stats. I have some Letterboxd stats, but we can touch on those if you guys want.
Letterboxd stats.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Real quick. to kind of usher us into the Letterboxd portion, if we have any other Letterboxd stats to go through, I was very proud of this fact. So, of the movies that I watched, 109 were released in 2018, and I managed to write a review on Letterboxd that, granted, some of them were shorter than others, but I made a point to review every 2018 movie that I saw.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And my total amount of reviews posted on Letterboxd in 2018, this is a little inflated because I did go back and add some reviews from Obsessive Viewer to my backlog when I was backlogging the stuff, but it wasn't too substantial. But I wrote a total of 273 reviews on Letterboxd.
Damn.
In 2018.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's hard, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reviewed 14.
40.
Nice. Nice.
40.
Well, not bad. You guys will get there. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, those are my stats. Best movie watching year of my young life here.
Wow.
Yeah.
You took It Was a Good Year for Movies to a whole new level.
Yeah.
I think different meaning.
I think the 87 in the theater is more impressive than the 366 in a year.
I think so too.
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to just sit on your couch and watch a movie.
That's true.
Which is what I did.
but also 56 of those theater viewings were A-list, so like there's that subscription thing where it's like
true.
It's not like I had to do too much work to go to the theater.
Yeah.
Right.
Still, I think that's more
But yeah,
impressive.
87, I don't know if we'll see. A-list could.
Well, you better.
Yeah.
I honestly think if you did that, if you had A-list for half a year, you got 87. I mean, I think you ought to shoot for 100.
Well, here's the thing, and I forgot to mention this. So in 2016, I had MoviePass for the entire year, January to December, full 12 months. I had MoviePass. In that year, I watched 83 movies in the theater.
Okay.
That was my thing there. And what's interesting is I think that back then MoviePass wasn't in the toilet, but it was thriving. And you could see one movie every day, but like
Right.
I saw like several movies. Obviously, I saw a considerable amount of movies with that, but I think that there's something subconscious with me that like having 3 tickets a week is like I said before, it's like I kind of should see 3 movies to get my full money's worth each week. Also, it helped that the latter half of the year was like, good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good movies out. So we'll see with 2019. But yep.
Mike, do you have any further Letterboxd stats you want to throw out?
Not really. I don't quite know what he was talking about.
Yeah, I was going for like top director, top
I see.
actor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was your guys' first and last movie?
My first one was The Room, because we were going to watch The Disaster Artist the next day. Mm-hmm. So we watched The Room. And my last film, on December 26th, I was just like doing work on my computer, and I had... Are you laughing because you know the movie?
I think so.
So one of my favorite films of all time is My Girl. Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis, Anna Chlumsky is her name, is the girl's name. I had a major crush on her growing up.
Me too.
And then, of course, Macaulay Culkin is in that one. And I remember, like, my mom telling me about that movie, and, like, she's like, okay, we're going to watch this, but I need to tell you, the boy dies at the end. Right. And if you're going to be too upset, you don't have to watch it. I was like, no, we'll watch it. And I was so upset. Like, when it was, that movie wrecked me when I was little Thomas J. So yeah, I just threw that on to have at the end. And it holds up. I still love that movie. I think it's a
nice.
great movie.
Yeah. Do you want to go with the rest of your Letterboxd stats, or do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll kind of look for some stats here. I did, like I said, 40 reviews, 231 hours of movies, which is not all that much, I guess. That's 10.8 per month, an average of 2.5 per week. My biggest day is Thursday, which is no surprise because that's my movie
Naturally.
night. I would say the most stars, or the star I watched the most. Do you know this, Matt, or do you want to take a guess?
I'm going to take a guess based on mine and the Letterboxd year in review. Samuel L. Jackson?
Ooh, no.
Oh,
not even close. He's not even in my top 10. No, it was Kane Hodder, who played Jason.
Oh, that makes sense.
Number 2 is Jamie Lee Curtis. Directors, Spielberg, David Litch, and Mike Flanagan.
Nice. David Litch, what did
just Deadpool. Deadpool
gotcha.
2 and Deadpool 2.5. Producers, no surprise for me, Jason Blum. Or Blumkins.
Who?
Jason Blum?
I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah. So that's all. I don't want to give away too much. Those are my stats.
Sure. As a slight tangent or slight, supplemental conversation here, I'm really kind of bummed that Letterboxd, when they have stats, for our listeners, you can get your stats by becoming a pro member of Letterboxd. It's just $19 for the full year. Totally worth it if you're a stat nerd like us. But one stat that I wish that they would have is, I wish that they would have biggest studio list, top 10 studios, because I think that would be a really interesting stat to watch.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, just because I want to be able to look at it and be like, oh, Universal had a really good year, or what have you.
That would be
guess
interesting.
I just look at that and see Jason Blum, and I know that mine's Blumhouse.
Right. Tiny, how about your Letterboxd stats?
Yeah, so I wrote 14 reviews for the year, which I want to get that up next year, definitely.
By the way, guys, Mike, your Slender Man review was awesome, as well as your Halloween one.
Thanks.
And Tiny, I loved your Widows review.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had 229 hours total viewing time.
Amateurs.
Biggest day of the week was Sunday. I watched almost half my movies on Sunday.
Okay.
Wow. That's when we typically do stuff on Saturday and then take it easy on Sunday. So that's when we end up renting movies and stuff.
Love it.
Yeah. And then I averaged 9.8 per month, 2.2 per week. My first movie of the year was Star Wars The Last Jedi on January 2nd. And my last on New Year's Eve was Bird Box. So, and I didn't go into my genres in the last one, but my number one was drama with 56 movies, just about half. And then action was in second with 37, and thriller was in third with 36th. Sci-fi didn't have not the best year for me. That was sixth with 25 films. That's kind of surprising. My wife isn't a big sci-fi fan. That's why, I think. So
Feel that, dog. Feel that, dog.
Yeah. And then my most watched actor, it's a three-way tie between Liam Neeson, Simon Pegg, and Woody Harrelson.
Not bad.
Interesting. 5 movies for each of them. So I'm racking my brain trying to think of all those Liam Neeson movies. Most watched director, number one, two-way tie between Steven Spielberg and Christopher Nolan. Very happy with that. Producer was Stan Lee, which is funny. Writer, Christopher Nolan. Yeah, that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my Letterboxd stats, let's see, 660.2 hours.
Jesus.
My God.
I know.
My God.
Yeah. My, highest, my average per month was 29.8. Average per week, 6.9 movies. Highest, day was also Sunday. 83 films on Sunday. First movie was 9. Which I watched over at a friend's house New Year's Day when hungover. And, like, I wanted to make my last movie connect in some way to that, so I wanted to make my last movie, like, 10 Things I Hate About You, or David Wayne's The 10, or something like that.
Yeah.
But I ended up just watching Pitch Perfect 3, so no connection, but whatever.
Yeah, that works, though.
Yeah, I guess. I do have a very, very nerdy plan for 2019. I kicked it off by watching Blade Runner, because Blade Runner, of course, takes place in 2019.
Right.
And so I have every intention of my last movie of 2019 being Blade Runner 2049. Just because. So my top stars, like, I'm really excited for 2019 because I have no intention of rewatching all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So I'm gonna rewatch Infinity War, and I'm gonna see Endgame and everything, and Captain Marvel, but in 2018 I rewatched all of them in the lead up to Infinity War. So my top stars are basically, my top one is Samuel L. Jackson with 14 movies. Actually, it's tied with Samuel L. Jackson, 14 movies, and Paul Rudd with 14 movies. Of the top 10 stars, 3 of them are not affiliated with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm looking forward to actually, like, seeing how it is when I'm not, like, doing, like, a full franchise or whatever watch. Assuming that I don't do one, that I don't rewatch a franchise or anything. Top director was Steven Spielberg with 14 movies. And then in second place was Alfred Hitchcock with 5. So I was really excited about those. Like, at one point, they were pretty, like, neck and neck. And I was thinking, like, I could kind of, like, trade off and see, like, which one actually will get the most viewings. But I kind of stopped that after a while. Producer Stan Lee. And, yeah, no other real stats. I will say that the most obscure movie I watched, it's kind of a funny anecdote. The most obscure movie is this movie called 1,000 Miles Behind, which was actually very good. I watched it as part of Heartland Film Festival, and why it's interesting is because the movie, like, Letterboxd pulls from not IMDb, but it's like the Internet Movie Database website. It's like a separate, not affiliated with IMDb. So several Heartland Film Festival movies were not on that database. So I created an account on that website, and I added the movies myself. So that's why it's the most obscure. Yeah,
because it's one.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Really good movie, though. I definitely recommend checking out our Heartland episodes because I interviewed the filmmakers and they were really cool.
Cool.
So those are our stats. Really good year, guys.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. Yeah. You know, anything to combat this crushing loneliness I feel.
Oh, shit. I don't.
I'm just kidding, guys, mostly.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, let's get into...
Case in point, I was late to recording because I was putting my 2-year-old son to bed.
Right. And and when I was getting set up, I tweeted a picture of my cat.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yep. So anyway, let's get into the fun stuff. The less methodical stuff.
Let's do it, baby.
Yeah, so before we get into our actual top 10 lists, let's go ahead and just run down, if we have them, movies we missed that we didn't get a chance to see in 2018 or in the little grace period we gave ourselves before recording. So, Mike, are there any movies from 2018 that you wish you would have seen?
Yeah, I think Roma is the biggest one. That's kind of the one that's getting all the buzz that I think we're supposed to be into. The Favorite, I guess, is the other one, but I gotta say, I don't know, I don't mean to be, snob is not the word. I don't mean to be like dismissive, I guess is the word. Yeah. I just don't want to, it's just like so far afield of anything I'm interested in that I kind of, unless it's nominated for Best Picture, and it probably will be, I don't think I'll see it. But so Roma and The Favorite, I guess.
Nice. Tiny, how about you?
I got a handful. Boy Erased looked really good to me. Heard about it on NPR. Joel Edgerton talking about it on NPR sounded really good. Overlord looked like a ton of fun, and a lot of people liked it that I missed out on. Upgrade, the same, looks super fun, and it's not available on VOD yet. Beautiful Boy with Steve Carell, which I think just got released or was made available on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
So I'll probably watch that soon. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, really wish I would have seen that one. Looked super fun. Love, Simon. A lot of friends were talking about that one. I wish I would have seen that. Yeah. A Star is Born. I completely missed. Can't wait to see that one. And First Man for the history. That sounds like a historical biopic. Sounds really good. So, yeah, way too many.
Nice. Even though I watched 109 2018 released movies, I still had some that I didn't get a chance to see.
How?
If Beale Street Could Talk, which is Barry Jenkins' new movie, I've heard a lot of really great things about it. It just wasn't playing at... To be completely honest, it wasn't playing at an AMC near me, and I'm really cheap. So, and I didn't feel like driving all the way up to the north side and going to Keystone Art, where the seats aren't as comfortable and I have to pay out of pocket. I've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. Beautiful Boy, I wish that I would have seen this instead of Welcome to Marwen, when talking about Steve Carell movies in 2018. They Shall Not Grow Old, the documentary, the World War I documentary with what's the word I'm looking for? Restored footage from World War I by Peter Jackson. There was a movie called Burning. I don't know much about it, just that Steve Yeun is in it, and it's getting a lot of buzz. Free Solo, which is a documentary about. I was gonna make a really shitty Star Wars joke, but I'm not going to. Free Solo is is a documentary about a guy who's climbing El Capitan in Yosemite, and he's doing it without rope. He's he's free balling it.
Jeez. You don't have
and
to
it's a documentary. Huh?
That's unnecessary. Why would you do that?
I know. But I've heard incredible things about how it looks incredible because the filmmakers are with him and they're friends with him and I guess there's a lot to it that's they're documenting something that he could die doing, and even worse they could accidentally cause his death if they get in his way because they're climbing with him. But anyway. And then Paddington 2, I heard really great things about it, ridiculously good things about it, but I just never got around to it. So, those are my missed 2018 movies. And do you guys want to go into the top 10, or should we postpone it a little bit more by doing honorable mentions?
I think we do honorable mentions because we go in ascending order.
I think we do, yeah. I think we got to go with honorable mentions first.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, Mike, do you want to get us kicked off with honorable mentions for 2018?
I would love to. You know what's funny? I'm kind of clicking around here on my Letterboxd list to get set up because here we go. And what's super exciting is after we're done with this, I'm actually going to post this list, which is right now it's private, but I'm gonna make it public to all my followers.
Yes, I'm excited
not even
too.
A real thing. I don't have a lot of followers anyway. So do we want to go through just as many honorable mentions as we want? Maybe don't give. Should we take turns and give all of them rather than round robining?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You do all your honorable mentions. Tiny will do all his. Yeah.
So because I can, I'm going to go all the way down to 20. I'm going to give my 10 honorable mentions because I have them here on my list. They are ranked when you see my Letterboxd list, but everything kind of after 10 is just kind of loose, unranked. So in my honorable mentions, I have Black Klansman, which I loved. A Quiet Place, which I saw early in the year, but I kind of like time has made my love for it diminish a little bit. Blockers, I'm not a huge fan of comedies. They usually don't end up on my top 10 lists. But if I could make room for one, Blockers would be on there. Searching, I thought was very, very well done, but at the end, I couldn't keep it on my top 10 because it felt like just kind of like a Sunday afternoon movie. Black Panther is great, but I made room for another movie of similar ilk. Tag, same deal with Blockers. I thought Tag had more heart than I expected. Game Night is another comedy. I think you're getting the theme that I just kind of tend not to include comedies, even though they're some of the easiest ones to watch. Like, these three are ones I'm probably going to watch with my wife in the next couple of months. Blockers, nice. Tag, and Game Night, but whatever. And then if you look at my top horror movies of the year, these two are included. Unfriended, Dark Web. I thought Unfriended was way smarter than a lot of the reviews I saw. I thought that was a really good, really effective horror movie. Terrifier is disgusting. I've talked about it on this podcast. I talked about it in our July episode. It's really, really great if you love gross, gory, like terrifying horror. You'll love it. And then I included Deadpool 2 in there because I thought it was really good. They did a really good job of giving fans enough candy to enjoy it. I don't think overall it's one of the best, but I had a lot of fun with it, kind of picking out some of the Easter eggs that almost felt like they were from me. So those are honorable mentions.
Nice. Good list.
Yeah. Tiny, how about you?
I have quite a few as well, but not quite as many. But the first two were just really good action movies that kind of blew me away with their incredible action sequences. Incredibles 2 and Mission Impossible Fallout. I was not expecting that much from Incredibles 2, but man, it really blew me away. I couldn't believe the detail and the just how gorgeous of a movie it was. Mission Impossible Fallout, like, I think I said, I don't remember if I said it on the podcast, but at one point, like, I think the action sequences are on par with something that, like, Christopher Nolan would do. Just stuff that you don't understand how they physically did that. Just a really incredible movie. Deadpool 2, I thought it had surprisingly a lot of heart, like genuine moments in it that I wasn't expecting, that was dispersed really well throughout the comedy, and I think they really wove those two genres or feelings together in that movie. That surprised me a lot, and I thought it was fantastic. Black Panther, man, I just love Michael B. Jordan. I love Chadwick Boseman. Everybody in those movies, just awesome performances and really cool action. I'm excited to see where they go with that character. Halloween, I really love that they were just like, all right, let's get back to bare bones, wipe out the last however many movies and just start back with Laurie Strode. That was such a great idea, and it worked to the nth degree. Roma, which we talked about in a previous episode. I talked about my qualms with it a little bit because it's such a good movie. I feel badly leaving it off the top 10, but you can hear my qualms in that recording. But just gorgeous movie, technically unbelievable movie. Dumplin' from Netflix. I just kind of squeezed this in towards the end of the year and was really not expecting anything from it, but it just kind of blew me away. I really love the performances in it, and it has a bit of an agenda, but it feels genuine, or like they're not shoving it down your throat. And I just enjoyed the way they put that into the script. And then lastly, Operation Finale, which is a movie I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about. It's about the search for and capture of Himmler after World War II. He was hiding in South America, played by Ben Kingsley. Oscar Isaacs is also in it. Incredible performances. The dialogue scenes are remarkably tense. Just a really well done film. So those are my honorable mentions. Also in not particular order, just kind of thrown together.
Nice.
So, yep.
Brief comment on Operation Finale. There were certain movies throughout the year that I got tickets to with A-List that I ended up canceling the reservation just because various reasons, like I didn't feel like going or something else came up. That's kind of the beauty of A-List, is you can just easily cancel it. It doesn't affect it or anything. So I had a ticket to see Operation Finale, and then I canceled it and then ended up not seeing a movie. And then I thought like I would have more time to see it, but it left theaters before I got a chance to see it. So
it's a bummer.
Yeah. So I guess that could have been one of the movies I missed. All right, great. So my honorable mentions, I have 5 of them, in alphabetical order. First one is Annihilation. The reason that it didn't make my top 10 is just because I loved Ex Machina so much, and it left such an impression on me. And then after seeing Annihilation, even though technically it's like, in terms of filmmaking and everything, it is a gorgeous movie and it has a lot to say and everything. It just didn't stick with me the way that Ex Machina did. So it's just an honorable mention. Black Klansman is phenomenal. It makes me really want to go back and watch more Spike Lee movies, and just the way that he tied it to our modern era was just, it stuck with me a lot. Sorry to Bother You. Really surreal and interesting movie with a lot of social commentary that I dug a lot. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I feel like rewatching it, I'll kind of regret not putting it on my top 10 because it's such a unique animated movie. It's so cool and so good. But for now, it's just an honorable mention. And finally, Upgrade, which did spend some time on my top 10, but ultimately I had to cut it. But just such a cool ass movie. And like people say, like Logan Marshall Green, I've seen the comparison that he's like discount store Tom Hardy.
Oh my
and
gosh,
Upgrade
yes.
is like, yeah. And like Upgrade is like his like discount Venom or whatever. And I'm sad.
Except that Venom it's way better than Venom.
Right, exactly. Like, and I'm so, like, one of the big problems that I have with not having this on my top 10 is that on my list, which I actually just made public on my Letterboxd, by the way, when I had it at number 10, I wanted to put the blurb and say that, Upgrade is like the perfect antidote to Venom. Yeah.
That's okay.
But sadly, yeah.
You quirky bastard.
I know.
See what you're doing there.
Yeah. But yeah, so those are my honorable mentions. By the way, we didn't say this at the beginning, but usually, like, we'll shout out the episode title, that we reviewed the movie or talked about the movie in potpourri. We're not really going to do that this year. Just if you go to the show notes for this episode, which can be found in your podcast app or at obsessiveviewer.com/OV266, you'll find links to all the episodes, where we discuss it. I'll have it all set up and all pretty.
Nice.
So those are honorable mentions, and then let's postpone just real quickly our top 10s by giving a shout out to a couple of top 10s that we have from our recurring co-hosts. So if you've been listening to the podcast this year, you know that we've gone through a little bit of a shift, I guess. Like Mike said earlier, we've been doing a lot more like movie reviews and everything, and then we've also had more guest appearances that have morphed into recurring co-hosts. So, long time guest Robert Fekkes is now officially a recurring co-host on the podcast, as well as the newer addition to the roster, my friend Kyrsten. She is also a recurring co-host. So I put the call out to have them compile top 10 lists for us. So before we get into our top 10 list, I'm just going to run through Fekkes' top 10 as well as Kyrsten's. Fekkes, by the way, had a total of 206 viewings in 2018.
Okay. Good showing, Fekkes. Good showing.
Yep. And from 10 to 1, his top 10 is number 10, Black Klansman. Number 9, Eighth Grade. Number 8, A Star is Born. Number 7, Bad Times at the El Royale. Number 6, Deadpool 2. Number 5, Boy Erased. Number 4, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 3, Overlord. Number 2, Vice. And his number 1 movie of the year, Mr. Robert Fekkes named Avengers Infinity War.
Nice.
He was number 1. Right. He also had a few honorable mentions. He had Mudbound, which technically was 2017, but that's fine. And A Quiet Place and Aquaman as his honorable mention. And then worst of 2018, he had Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Ready Player One, and Bird Box.
Wow.
Yep. So, okay, and then Kyrsten's top 10, which, by the way, I saw a total of 37 movies in theaters with her. So of those 87, 37 were with Kyrsten.
Okay.
From 10 to 1. Number 10 was Won't You Be My Neighbor? Number 9, Deadpool 2. Number 8, Black Panther. Number 7, A Quiet Place. Number 6, Searching. Number 5, Avengers Infinity War. Number 4, Blindspotting. Number 3, Overlord. Number 2, Eighth Grade. And Kyrsten's number 1 movie of 2018, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yep. So those are our recurring co-hosts' top 10 lists. You can bug them about it on Twitter. Fekkes is at @RAFekkes. Also on Instagram and Snapchat, he's Nerdster330. And Kyrsten on Twitter is at @burger_lurker. So please pester them with your opinions about their top 10s. Okay, so guys, we are here.
We are.
Are we ready to go through our top 10 movies of 2018?
I can't wait. I wait all year for this moment.
Me too. Me too. So let's start with Mike. We'll do our 10s round robin, then 9s, and then so on and so forth. So, Mike, hit us with your number 10 movie of 2018.
I'd love to. So, in years past, for some reason, I always had this habit of, like, I'll set up the movie in a mysterious way, almost like I'm teasing it, and I'll be like, so this movie that I'm going to talk about is blah, 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 blah. And so I'm vowing not, aside from this, obviously, I'm vowing not to do that this year. And I'm just going to start by saying my number 10 movie is Avengers Infinity War. And this movie was actually not on my list for a while. I kind of left it at the bottom, and as I would see good movies, I would kind of let it kind of drop out of the top 10. Just because I know that for a lot of reasons it feels like a complete film, but I just know that because we're getting Endgame and it will feel like another part to that, that it just feels like part 1 of 2, and so I couldn't put it up higher on my list. The other thing I want to do with these lists is not defend why they're low on the list. When you see a bunch of movies, to be in the top 10 is pretty awesome anyway, and it's all subjective. So the answer is these are all tied for number 1, right?
Good point.
That's a little too much. That's not true, but yeah. I don't want to talk about what I didn't like about 10. Being number 10 is awesome. Avengers Infinity War was awesome. I think as part 1 of the culminating event of this 10-year process they did, it was breathtaking. It was beautiful to watch. Kind of compared to Black Panther, I really loved some of the themes in Black Panther, but I thought that Avengers Infinity War just kind of did it on this bigger scope, which in terms of, comic book movies, they keep trying to get bigger, and this one actually kind of felt as big as it was supposed to felt. The way it juggled multiple characters and multiple storylines was really awesome, and I just had a lot of fun with it, which I know that, most people did. So, easy number 10, Avengers Infinity War.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Nice. Tiny, how about your number 10?
My number 10 is Hold the Dark, which we talked about in a past episode. We reviewed it, and definitely go there for my thoughts on that, more extensive thoughts. I really just love this movie because it's so unique, and so like I just appreciated the sheer darkness of it. I think a lot of people had trouble with this movie and things to criticize it for, and I can't give anyone much friction on that, because I understand it was I think I said in the review that it's Jeremy Saulnier's least accessible of his 3 major films. And I think it was hard to understand. And actually, I think it's more than that. I don't think we're supposed to understand a lot of this movie. The character motivations, stuff like that. It's hard to pin down, but for whatever reason, those things, not only did they not bother me, they made me appreciate it more. I think it was just a super, super smart script and story that forces you to pay attention and didn't talk down to the audience at all, and just really, really shocked me and blew me away. Also had, amidst all of the really quality action films this year, which I mentioned in my honorable mentions, this film, being just a very dark drama, had one of my favorite action sequences of the whole year, which we talked about in our review. It is a spoiler, so make sure you see the film first. But I love Jeremy Saulnier. He just speaks to me on a whole other level, and this movie spoke to me. So it's kind of a pretty personal pick. I don't think this movie is going to make a lot of top 10s for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because on our review, obviously I wasn't as high on it as you were, but
right.
Hearing you speak about it, I kind of want to revisit it with a more clear focus. But yeah, that sequence that you referenced in particular was very, very well done.
Yep. So that's my number 10. Matthew, what is yours?
Sweet. My number 10, and I was going to do a whole bit where I was going to do a pun for each one, but I can't think that quickly.
Oh, thank God.
But I will say that when I shared my top 10 list with Fekkes, he said, "Wow, Blockers?" Because Blockers is my number 10. And yes. So as I said in my stats rundown, one of my top stats was comedy movies, which I just like. Those are the most accessible, the most usually they're an hour and a half to less than 2 hours. Blockers kind of really shocked me because it is a teen sex comedy that is from the perspective of the adults, and it harkens back. I mean, the plot is essentially American Pie, but from the parents' perspective, and with a much more focused, like 2018 cultural sensitivity and sensibilities built into it. So it is an extremely sex positive, progressive movie that was really kind of a great bridge between like what I loved growing up. When I was in my formative years, I loved like R-rated teen sex comedies. American Pie was one of my favorite movies, like at an early age, well, 8th grade. And like I loved American Pie 2, and just I loved that, like that rise of just teen like raunchy comedies. Can't Hardly Wait comes to mind as well, which actually kind of predates American Pie. But what I loved about Blockers is that it bridges that nostalgia and that love that I had from my more formative years with the kind of person that I am today, or I see myself as, my sensibilities, my sensitivities to like certain like cultural like hot button issues and everything. Like it's just a really unique bridge of those two parts of my life that it worked so well for me, and I loved it for it. So also the performances, like the triumvirate of John Cena, Leslie Mann, and Ike Barinholtz, like their comedic sensibilities and the way that they played off each other was just spectacular to me. I loved it. And I loved the kids in the movie too. Like they were great. I also loved seeing the kind of stoner guy, or kind of like the homegrown like drug guy in Blockers, be somewhat of a similar character in Halloween. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, you know what's funny?
Yeah.
When you talk about the kind of sex positive tone, about the movie. He is kind of one of my favorite characters for that reason. I think in a movie maybe 10 years ago, at the latest 10 years ago, he would have been like a dick, right? And he would have, he would have tried to, coerce the female lead into doing something she didn't want to do, and it would have to be her overcoming that situation. But I really liked the positivity he brought to, or at least the script brought to that role in the way he was respectful to her, and that it wasn't like this anti-sex plot. It was about the parents kind of coming to terms with modernity.
Yeah, it's just amazing to like think about it, like the way that like teen sex on film has come, like how far it's come. 1999, American Pie. We have a bunch of horny guys setting up a webcam to watch a classmate undress.
Yeah.
That leads into just, what I always refer to as our generation's Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool from Fast Times.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine that scene today?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we have that, and then now we have blockers where we have respectful and like open discussions about this kind of things between the characters. It's really interesting. It's a nice, I guess I wouldn't say time capsule, but it's just interesting. It's interesting in the way it's indicative of the era that we're in.
Yeah.
I hope that it's not a time capsule. I hope that it's a sign of movies to come.
Agreed. Yeah, I loved that none of the dudes in that movie were trying to get laid really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which again is a big change. That was the women, the girls. That was funny. And then I absolutely adore Ike Barinholtz.
Me too.
Yeah, he's.
I think he stole a lot of scenes, and I loved him in this. So I almost made my honorable mentions, but not quite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So that's my number 10. Mike, how about your number 9?
My number 9 is the Lee Wanell directed Upgrade. And I love this movie so much. This is so if I take just one, like, eensy step outside of horror, which is my favorite genre, it's forward-thinking action sci-fi thrillers. And this movie, not plot-wise at all, but just in terms of the way it made me feel, it reminded me of movies like Equilibrium. In a way, it was similar to The Matrix, just kind of pushing sci-fi, 1 inch further into the future with what we can do with our own bodies, or what technology will be able to do with our body. Like I said, Equilibrium. Ex Machina is kind of another, where the story is completely different. They have nothing to do with each other, but just that idea of what is coming in the future. And I just thought Upgrade was so awesome. So it's, like I said, it was directed by Lee Wanell, who, directed co-wrote the first Saw movie, with James Wan. Was a producer on most of those movies, was kind of switched over to directing later on, and then he did this movie, another Blumhouse movie. We mentioned earlier in the podcast that Logan Marshall Green is kind of like a poor man's Tom Hardy. I know that we celebrate Tom Hardy, and I know that we do it on this podcast, but I think Logan Marshall Green was better in this movie than I've seen Tom Hardy in anything in a while. We can talk about that at another time, but I just thought the performance was like seeing someone play weird shit happening to your body is a cool thing to watch. He handles it well. I also just think the action was pretty kick-ass. It was just a fun movie to watch. So, Upgrade is my number 9.
That's, well said. I agree completely. It's a movie that I'm gonna revisit it's gonna be kind of on a rotation once I get a copy of it.
It's a movie I imagine so I'll watch again. This list, it's in the top 3 of I'll probably see that again soon.
Yeah. It'll be one of your 6 rewatches in 2019.
That's right. Yeah.
Tiny, how about your number 9?
Yes, my number 9 is the documentary "Won't You Be My Neighbor." Nice. I watched this recently. It's one of the 2018 movies I kind of squeezed into this last month. Happily so. It was a must-watch for the year for me. What's so great about the documentary directed by Morgan Neville is that they managed to illustrate how culturally and socially and politically important Fred Rogers was as a person, and how his program really influenced decades and children for decades, which not a lot of people have done. And I think it's interesting that he was influential and he was famous from the late 60s all the way into the 90s. He was on television for over 30 years. I really wish we had someone like him now. I think not only was he so relevant, but he did it without ever saying bad stuff about people or trolling people. He did it without social media and the internet. He had the single forum, and he was always about being good and nice and positive and caring for your fellow man. He was always inclusive, and he wasn't 100% perfect, but he was about as close to perfect as a person can get when it comes to his message and influencing children and teaching children. He's a one-of-a-kind person. I think he's beyond once in a lifetime. He is I don't know that we'll ever have anyone like Fred Rogers again. And this documentary just shined a beautiful light on that. And it was emotional, and it was funny, and it was sad. And, I forgot how much I liked Mr. Rogers as a kid, and it brought back all these memories and nostalgia, which is a great thing that a documentary can do. And it just hit all the right emotional notes for me. It was really, really well done.
Nice. I'm so glad that you got a chance to see that.
Me too.
By the end of 2018. My number 9 is Blind Spotting with Daveed Diggs and Raphael Casal?
Raphael Casal, yeah.
There you go. It was one of the movies that I saw a couple times over the course of 2018. Just the way that this movie depicts Colin's last 3 days on probation in the movie, the way that it depicts his anxiety, the way that he internalizes the crime that he saw, and the way that that impacts his daily life in those last 3 days of probation is just remarkable. That, and then it also adds this layer of being about racial identity and being being influenced or impacted by gentrification in your neighborhood and losing your identity within your home and everything. Just a really well balanced movie that had a lot of good kind of subtle comedic beats and dramatic beats. It really handled that really well. There was the Ant-Man-esque retelling of the incident outside of the club.
Yeah.
That was just fantastic. But then it's also balanced by the incredibly raw emotion of the rap scene at the end, as well as the courtroom dream sequence. This movie had so many scenes that were just really perfect at depicting or accentuating what the themes of the movie were and what the emotion of it. And also the way that it's I've said this before, I'm a 32-year-old white man in Indianapolis. I felt the fear and anxiety and the stress that Colin felt in the movie as just a black man walking down the street. That was depicted so strongly that I really felt for him, and it's an incredibly powerful movie in my book. That's Blind Spotting, and that's my number 9.
Sweet.
Yeah. Mikey, how about your number 8?
Love it. Number 8 for me is Mission Impossible Fallout.
Nice.
For a long while, I had this higher up on my list. I think To be honest, I think Pat kind of talked me out of it a little bit. I don't know why. I feel like maybe this should be higher. Whatever. Again, I'm like debating numbers here. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I think Mission Impossible is state-of-the-art action thriller.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. State-of-the-art by its definition, right? I think we throw that term around. What that means is, as the art form is concerned, this is the best we've seen. It is the best action movie I've ever seen. The set pieces are mind-boggling. The stunts, which, I don't care how many Tom Cruise actually does versus whatever. Somebody is doing those stunts and they look incredible. What I loved this time around, I know a lot of people really celebrated these last two Mission Impossible pictures. But I found them to be a little wanting when it came to, character development, right? Almost like they were like, we know who these characters are from the first three movies. We don't need any more development in this film for those last two. And this movie said, maybe we do. Maybe we ought to give every character an arc this time around. And we saw some romance. We saw Simon Pegg get an arc. I think in certain ways we even saw Ethan Hunt, get an arc, that we haven't had since Michelle Monaghan in part 3. And they bring her back in this movie. There was just so much for fans of the series, fans of action movies, fans of Tom Cruise to really get into here. I think it's the best that action has to offer. And I just loved it so much.
Absolutely. Well said, and I will be talking about that later.
Yeah, great points. Absolutely.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Tiny.
Yes, 8. My number 8, and I didn't realize I made this little hiccup, but I put 8th grade in the 8th slot, which was completely unintentional, but it just turned out that way. This is one of the most bittersweet, sweetly sorrowful films I've ever seen. Because there's so much tragedy, or not necessarily tragedy, but sadness in this film, and you feel sympathy for the character or characters, but it's amazing how, especially the lead character Kayla, played by Elsie Fisher, remains positive throughout this whole movie. I feel like this movie, that's what blew me away about this. I feel like it could have been quite a downer and just not a little too dark or too dramatic, but she maintains her positivity throughout the whole movie. And I was just like, how does she do that? I don't understand how she did that. And that really surprised me with this. And I think it's kind of, I feel like so much of modern culture, especially with youth, is very flash in the pan, very surface joy. It's all social media and, oh, look what I'm wearing and I'm happy. But then underneath, there's a lot of sadness. And I feel like she was the opposite of that. So a lot of the other characters were very self-centered and all about that, me generation kind of thing. Not that I'm on my soapbox about that stuff, but like some people are. But I just feel like she really she bucked the trend by trying to embrace that culture. When it was strange how it worked out. And it's so culturally relevant for the times right now. It's most films about social media are not that well done, I don't think. And this goes beyond a commentary on what it's like to grow up in the 21st century. It's more than that, but it's also one of the best examples of that I think I've seen. And it's funny, it's dramatic. I think the dad, played by Josh Hamilton, was one of my heroes of the year.
Oh yeah.
There's a scene, a very heartfelt scene at a campfire that he has with his daughter that I thought was just such a beautiful thing for a father to say to his daughter. If I ever have a daughter, I hope I can tell her something that heartfelt one day. That's how good that was. And to think that it all came from the mind of 25-year-old Bo Burnham, however young he is.
Yeah. Freaking genius.
He's literally a genius. I am blown away by that guy every time I see anything he does. So this was, I almost wish I would have put it higher on the list now that I'm talking about it again. I definitely want to see it again. Just a really, really great movie.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going to pause briefly and just kind of say that I don't remember if I said this, but I'm really proud of my top 10 list. And I'm very pleased with how I was able to see so many movies and like use those movies to kind of, sculpt a top 10 list. The reason why I'm pausing here is that a running kind of trend throughout my top 10 list from here on out really is this idea that like as a movie, as each individual movie on my top 10 list, from here on out, like they most if not all of them have something that I don't understand as a consumer of film media. Like it's just like these movies do something wholly unique that I was kind of blown away by. So having said that, my number 8 is actually A Quiet Place, John Krasinski's directorial debut. It utilizes sound and the sound mixing and the absence of sound in such an incredible and intense way that I like. It's one of my favorite like theater experience that I've had in recent memory, if not ever, because I saw it opening weekend. It was a packed house. It was in the most intense way. It was silent, both on screen and in the theater. Like everyone was quiet. Everyone was enveloped into the narrative. And this is a movie that I can't believe that they were able to do what they did, because this is a movie that has, subtitles from American Sign Language and complete, like, dialogue-less scenes for the entirety of, like, the opening probably 10 minutes of the movie is just completely silent. And it's just remarkable that effect, drew us into the story in such a way that I was just really gripped in, really into it. And one of the kind of, not issues, but one of the fears that I had was that is this going to have like an impact when I watch it later? Like, is this just a one and done, like, oh, this was a really interesting kind of conceit? Is it going to hold up to repeat viewings? And this wasn't on my top 10 list. This was an honorable mention like 2 weeks ago. And then I rewatched it at home and I was just blown away all over again. I think that was like my third time seeing it, total. And like, I was just so impressed with everything about it. Even though like the monster designs are a little, derivative or what have you, and you can nitpick the movie to death, like, oh, what happens when you have diarrhea or you fart or whatever, or what happens to people that snore.
That's where you go.
Yeah. But like, you can try to like nitpick it to death, but the fact remains that this is just a remarkably well constructed thriller that on paper should be gimmicky or should be kind of something that overstays its welcome, but it really doesn't. And a lot of that is also the family narrative in the movie, that it's just they're dealing with such an intense thing and an intense history that I was just really into it. It's really great. So yeah, that's my number 8, A Quiet Place. And I will be quiet now as Mike.
I thought we said no puns.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's like asking Matt not to breathe.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I think we've got our first repeat here, Tiny. So my number 7 is Won't You Be My Neighbor, and kind of for all the same reasons, plus 2 points, I guess. I also loved Won't You Be My Neighbor. I think there's something so strikingly unique about Fred Rogers that, kind of like I said to you, or kind of like you said, there doesn't exist people like that in this world anymore. And especially as a young father and a teacher of teenagers, I think about how valuable his message just of being good to people is today. I think I wish there was a show like his, or I wish at least his themes and his ideas were still being perpetuated by anybody. I don't know. We need that. We need that kind of love. Loving other people. I say that a lot. I tell a lot of people that I love them, and I think it's a term that, I don't know, somewhere along the line it got icky or uncouth or unbecoming to refer to anybody who's not family as someone that you love. And I think Fred Rogers was kind of all about that. I mean, he loved all of the kids that he worked with, and I tell my students that I love them. I just think it's a word or a feeling or an attitude that we need to bring back. And that movie really simultaneously made me feel that feeling and also made me sad that feeling is gone in a way. So I kind of loved the hopefulness of the picture. And I was also kind of gripped by the not only the sadness of his death, but that his death also brought upon his message is kind of withered a little bit over time.
Well said.
Well said.
Thanks.
And I'll bring that up later also.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. Tiny, our second repeat. What's your number 7?
Our second repeat. Yeah, A Quiet Place, like Matt just talked about. I agree with everything you said. You said it well. I think you talked about the sound a lot, and that was so integral. But I think because there wasn't much dialogue, and you can't speak or make noise. That is a huge advantage in the idea that this is a visual medium first. Movies started out without sound, and so I think it's gotten harder and harder over the years to convey messages visually. I think it's become more commonplace to just kind of tell your audience instead of showing your audience. And in this movie, they didn't have the option to do that very much. And I think they just demonstrated it visually really well. There's a scene there's a couple scenes, but one in particular where falling water, like a waterfall, is used to mask noise. And no one says it really. Someone says it in the first scene where it's used, but later on in the film, it's used to great effect. And I think it was an example of showing your audience, not telling them, and nobody was confused as to how that whole scenario was working. I think everyone was like, "Oh, that's clever," or "That's a cool use of sound and visuals at the same time." Without someone just saying a stupid line of dialogue, and that's really incredible for someone who's not really known as a writer, John Krasinski.
Right.
So yeah, first time. I think was he a first time writer on this as well?
First time writer. I think this was his second.
I don't know.
No. I think it was his directorial debut. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was his directorial debut, but I didn't know if he'd written something before. But and also I'm not kidding. One of my favorite endings ever.
Oh, interesting.
That's how much I love that ending.
Wow.
Like I don't, and I can't even put my finger on. I need to see the movie again. I've only seen it once, but I can't put my finger on exactly what it was. I think it was just the camera work and the build up to that moment, and just the whole mother-daughter thing, and the click of a shotgun. I'm sorry. The racking of a shotgun is one of the most satisfying sounds in the world. I just love it. And so that ending, I was at home by myself. It was like 11 o'clock and I stood up. I was like, yeah, like I did a fist pump. That's how much I loved that ending.
Wow.
It's pretty silly. So
interesting.
A Quiet Place was such a great movie. I really loved all the techniques used throughout the movie were really impressive. Yep.
Nice. And since that's going to be the last we talk about A Quiet Place, I think, just real quick, I thought the ending was a little abrupt. Wasn't my favorite part, but it still didn't detract from the movie for me.
Nice.
Also, I just want to mention, how freaking cool is it that they got an actual deaf child actress
Yes, that's
to
awesome.
to play that role. Like, and
Yes.
she was great.
Nice touch.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. So that brings us to my number 7.
Yep.
Yes, my number 7 is another repeat. Mission Impossible Fallout. I said this when I was on the Nerds You're Looking For, but if you had told me 2 years ago that I would have the 6th installment of the Mission Impossible franchise on my top 10 list.
Mission Impossible
And-
6.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you would have told me that and also said that you will buy the Blu-ray set of all the movies and you will rewatch Fallout and then want to immediately watch it again, I would be, well, first I would say, what's Fallout? But second, I would say, like, you're joking, because I had no allegiance to Mission Impossible Fallout. I think really a good percentage of the reason why I even saw this movie was because A-List happened, and I could get a ticket very easily. So I had just reserved a ticket. I went through and watched the franchise. I wrote reviews on Letterboxd and everything. I was primed for it. But it still blew me away. Like you said, Mike, the techniques used, like it is, like you said, it is state of the art in every sense of the phrase. It is just, there are so many moments in this movie that I can't believe can be achieved in camera practically. The whole chase sequence with, that's a little vague, the motorcycle chase sequence, the way that the camera just flows through it, and it's the fluidity of that, and it's so, like, it's not quick cut. It's all just focused, and it is so coherent and so well constructed that I'm just blown away that it's possible to do this without taking shortcuts or anything.
Absolutely.
And like when I was watching it, this is gonna, I don't know how people are gonna take this, but I was thinking, like, Mike, you said that you don't care about, like, okay, what Tom Cruise did or didn't do, like, in terms of actual doing the stunts, but like he pushes himself so much for these movies. He flew, I guess he like learned how to fly that helicopter, so that he could actually like control it to an extent. And like he does all of these stunts and everything. And I'm just like sitting there thinking, like, I don't know, I might have to cut this out, but, maybe Scientology is like the one true religion because he is still alive. like he has some kind of like magic force protecting him. But in all seriousness, like the sequences in this movie are amazing. The Halo jump is astounding. Like it is, again, I don't understand how it's possible to do that. Like not just the whole fact that, oh, Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill or their stunt doubles or however they configured it did that, but the fact that you can have a third person or multiple people do it with a camera attached to them and get it filmed. Like it is outstanding. And just, it is so incredible. Just, and to your point, Mike, about having more character development, that's one thing that I really loved about this movie, is that it actually gives depth to Ethan Hunt as a character without giving him like a damsel or going the route that like J.J. Abrams did. Not that I didn't like Mission Impossible 3, but like it's very much like Spy has a family thing. Here it's Spy has, his conscience is kind of coming into play, and like he's worried that he can't make a crucial decision and everything. And it's
they also
great because
aged him, which I love. Or not aged him, but they let him age. They let him be 50. I thought that was awesome.
Right. Yeah. But on the other hand, Tom Cruise still looks great.
Wow. Sure. Right.
Yeah. Again, one true religion apparently, but I'm really sorry if I offend anyone. But anyway, so I'm not a Scientologist, guys. I can't afford it. But yeah, it's just, I love the depth that they give to that character. And I love that giving him that depth is, it's it's not a leap. It's not like something that's constructed for the movie or anything. It fits in well with, like, it effectively, I wouldn't even say it's a retcon, but for the sake of this little discussion or whatever, it's like they safely retcon something about his character and make it so fluid and so organic to the entry that we're in. And it also ties in with characters that we've had, you know, we've come to admire and enjoy throughout the other entries in the franchise. Also, final thing I'll say about Fallout, the ending, like the helicopter chase, everything that they have to do.
All of it. Yes.
So intense.
Yes.
Like, it reminds me of, like, the feeling I get when I rewatch, like, Back to the Future.
Yep.
Where they have so many different, like, moving parts and a ridiculously low amount of time to do it. And, like, it is so just, like, I was so in it. Like, I was so there.
Yeah, the helicopter crash was my favorite stunt.
Yeah, I wish there was a more sophisticated word than intense, but
I know.
Though the word was made for how you feel at the end of that movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Just they were going for intense, and they hit it more than I've ever seen. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And, to kind of round it out, it is one of the best, if not the best, action movie I've seen. Like, it is so good. It's so transcendent. It's an incredible achievement in terms of filmmaking and everything about it. It's really great.
Nice.
Yep. And that's my number 7.
So, talking about action movies, a perfect segue into my number 6, the action film A Star Is Born. Yeah, I'm kidding, of course. No, but it is probably the most darling critically of all the movies on my list, and maybe of any of our lists. But I will say it is as good as advertised. The performances by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper are fantastic. I don't know what their lives are like in real life, but it's one of those ones where you believed that they were in love with each other. To watch her star rise throughout the movie was great. And when they perform Shallow, and she comes on and does her little wail, coming out of the bridge into the last chorus, I literally had chills and a lump of cry in my throat. It's clearly why they used it as, like, the focal point of the trailer. I thought the movie was beautiful, haunting at the end. There were a few times where I felt like, as her fame is on the rise and Bradley Cooper's character is kind of dropping off, he kind of does a line where he talks about how throwaway pop music is, right, and how bad pop music is. And I don't so much love that the film is in his favor. I don't like that the film essentially proves him right. She does a performance in character on SNL, and it's awful. The song is awful. Yeah. And he is kind of correct in his criticism of pop music. What bums me out is that I don't have that criticism of pop music, or at least the pop music I don't love. I'm able to say, well, that's not for me, but that is definitely a form of art. And I'm surprised that Lady Gaga, who I think pushes the boundaries of what pop music is, allowed that tone to be set about 2/3 of the way through the movie. So I don't love that. I like the interaction because it's heartbreaking and he's vile, some of the things he says to her. But I would like that they would have stayed a little more neutral about her rise to fame. Other than that, though, I had so many, like, lump of cries in my throat as I was watching the movie, and it stuck with me for a long time, especially that soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. I really wish I would have had the chance to see this again, because I saw it once in theaters, and then they had the Dolby re-release in theaters that I like. a peek behind the curtain or whatever. Like here, I live on the west side of Indianapolis, and the nearest Dolby Theater is like way up north, and it's a drive. It's like there's a lot of traffic on that side of town, and it's just a huge hassle. And I wish that it was closer because I would have totally seen it in Dolby, just for like the soundtrack and everything. Even though it didn't make my list or my honorable mentions, it's a strong performances out of both Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga was incredible in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a thing, I'm not going to spoil it, but the way that Bradley Cooper, the way that the movie shot kind of at the end, there's kind of a certain sequence toward the end of the movie that I thought was just very beautifully captured on film. I thought it just looked really cool, and beautiful. So yeah, that's cool. Nice. So Tiny.
Yes.
How about your number 6?
My number 6 is Black Klansman.
Nice.
Which is a movie I wasn't sure how I was going to react to it because I'm very up and down on Spike Lee. And lately I haven't been a big fan. Probably since Inside Man. That was probably the last time I really enjoyed a Spike Lee movie.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think he can be, when he's on, I think he's really great. And he was on this time. This story it has no business existing. Like this should not be a true story. Something so out there and ridiculous, and just how does this happen? It's really incredible, and that's what blew me away more than anything is how unique the story is, and just the fact that it ever happened is just really incredible. And I think there's despite all that, I really love the characters in the movie. The lead character is, an actor I wasn't familiar with at all. And, John David Washington, sorry, played Ron Stallworth. I wasn't familiar with him at all, and he just came out of nowhere and really blew me away. I've talked a lot about how much I like Adam Driver. And then, it's always fun to see Topher Grace. I think I enjoy him as an actor, and I think he does really well on both comedy and drama. And just I never would have thought that Topher Grace would play David Duke.
He plays such a good villain. I think
he does.
He
really
job.
does.
Yeah, I really enjoyed him.
He's that charming, just charming guy. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. But the first time, or when I saw the film, my initial reaction to the ending was a little bit negative or a little bit tainted. I just the way the American flag was used just at the end kind of hit me, and I was just like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, and I kind of didn't like it. But as I sat with the film, I think it was the right choice to make. And I think it makes sense, and I kind of changed my mind on it, because this movie does not have really a political agenda throughout it. It's really just telling the story, and there's an underlying message there, obviously, that's not hard to pick up on, but it doesn't shove any kind of agenda down your throat. But then at the end, Spike Lee tacks on this ending that really updates it to the issues we face today, and how people think that because we had a black president that racism is over. It's not, and it's still a problem. And this movie was a bit of a kind of shined a light on that, and really kind of updated the story to a modern audience. And I actually ended up appreciating the ending a lot more as I sat with it and thought about it. And I think it was like I said, it was a good choice. So, the story is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Not to get too political, I think we try not to do that on this podcast. But you said something about what did you say about how it doesn't have an agenda or something like that? And we live in an era of bipartisanship. And people know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Fox News. I'm talking about any of the liberal news media, right? Whatever. That any time it seems like something is shining a light on just something that is true that one side doesn't like. It feels like an agenda. Right? And so what I love so much about BlacKkKlansman, kind of like you said, I don't know that it's necessarily an agenda. This is just something that happened and something that is also still true. And its detractors are like, well, that's an agenda. You got the... It's not an agenda if you're just showing something that's true. It just feels like an agenda because it's something that your side disagrees with.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Well said.
Thanks. Yes.
It's the same thing with our president, and I'll stop there because I really don't want to.
Yeah, it's a horse in a hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that just instead of saying it has an agenda, just say it has a position.
Sure.
And it's just presenting something there. Like Tiny, to what you said about it, the ending just had a kind of profound effect on me because I'm not I haven't seen a Spike Lee movie in a long time previous to BlacKkKlansman, and so I just wasn't really prepared for him to tie it into the current day the way that he did, and like just how he did it was just very shocking, and it's just footage. It's just footage, and then the way that the flag is displayed at the end, as you said, that just really hit home to me, and just like was what I thought a perfect button on the movie and its position.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. So that brings me to my number 6, and my number 6 is the HBO original movie, I believe, The Tale, with Laura Dern, written and directed by Jennifer Fox. And I talked about this on a previous episode, but The Tale just really had just a profound effect on me. The Tale is a movie about Laura Dern playing Jennifer Fox herself. She's playing the writer and director of the movie. She's a documentarian who discovers or uncovers the fact that that her memory of her first boyfriend was actually a sexual assault and rape and just heinous predatory behavior. And she finds this out after the discovery of an 8th grade story that she wrote. And so the whole movie is her basically going back and recontextualizing her memories of what happened and coming to terms with the trauma that she endured and how it affected her life and everything. And what strikes such a chord with me in this movie is there are two things about this movie. To tie it back to my thesis statement for the top 10, that it's stuff that I've never seen or unique film techniques. It plays with memory in a very impactful way. So there's a scene where you see her memory of her introduction to some characters who are less than who are predators, essentially. And her memory is her as a young adult woman. But then she sees a picture of her at the age in which she met them. And it's like, oh, that's how small I was. That's how much of a child I was. So then you see a flashback of that scene again with a different actress of a younger age being introduced to them. And it just brings home just how fragile, our memories can be, and how the mind just kind of tries to protect you in ways. And the most jaw-dropping and emotionally resonant part of the movie is that it depicts her trauma in very vivid detail, in very shocking manners, not gratuitous or anything, but it just depicts it in a very raw and just very hard to watch kind of manner. And this movie is Jennifer Fox's true story. She really lived through this. She lived through uncovering these memories. She lived through confronting people that did horrible things to her and everything. And she made this film, and it's one of the most cathartic things I've ever seen, because she made this film. Laura Dern plays her, and she didn't change her name or anything. It's just it is the most courageous piece of filmmaking I saw all year. I just thought it was really just emotionally just incredible. Like, it really stuck with me and hit a chord. And that's The Tale, and it's on HBO.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on. I didn't get a chance to see that one. So we're in the top half. Hopefully you guys are still with us.
Right.
We're more than
Hashtag
an hour
top 5.
in. More than 2 hours in? Oh, jeez.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
Maybe you ought to put a timestamp that says if you just want the top 10, skip ahead to whatever.
Yeah.
I'll put in the show notes like timestamps for 10 through 6 and then 5 through 1.
So, my number 5 is Annihilation, and it was my number 1 for a while because I love, sci-fi horror, kind of movies. I love that it's an all-female cast. I think that's so cool. I think the performances are great. It kind of blew my mind a lot. I know in the past I've kind of complained about ambiguity in movies, but I don't know that this movie was all that ambiguous. I think it left a lot of questions on the table, but not for the sake of art, just for more like the sake of storytelling and mystery, right? The questions are left unanswered because the characters don't know the answers, and I kind of find that a little bit fun. More than anything, this movie belongs on my list for the creature effects about halfway in.
Yes.
Where, I guess that I shouldn't spoil, because the movie's only a year old and people might watch it. But so one of the twist is the wrong word, but when they go into this area that they're studying, they find that, creatures are kind of melding together. Something is not quite off, and so one of the members of the cast is killed off, and she, I guess I'll say parts of her come back in a way. And so we see a creature, about halfway through that I don't even know that I'd call Annihilation a straight up horror movie, but it was one of the scariest scenes I saw all year. Frankly, because of the sound design as well as the creature design. I loved that so much, and I couldn't get it out of my head for a long time.
Nice.
Alex Garland and I don't click. Sorry, guys.
This is true.
Sorry.
Yes, this is absolutely true.
I can't disagree with anything you said, though. It was a good movie. I just can't. There's some disconnect there. But yeah, the creature effects were fantastic. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, and like I said in my honorable mentions, I didn't dislike the movie, it just wasn't as thought-provoking as Ex Machina was. And maybe it's a fault on my part that I'm inherently comparing the two films. But yeah, I mean, I've rewatched it a couple times, and it holds up. It just doesn't have as deep an impact as I was going to make as deep an impact as my Independence Day or Armageddon Life or something. I don't know.
No.
We've been recording for a while.
Yeah.
Tiny, you're number 5.
My number 5 is Sorry to Bother You,
Nice.
which was, it's one of the more, I keep using the word unique. I need to dive into a thesaurus or something, but one of the more unique films of the year, one of the more unique films I've seen, written and directed by Boots Riley. The movie was kind of like, to contextualize it, was almost like the baby of Spike Jonze and Spike Lee. I think I said that at some point.
You said Charlie Kaufman and Spike Lee.
Charlie Kaufman and Spike Lee, yeah. Similar thing, though.
Yeah.
But, just a really... it's a really weird ass movie in such a charming way. And I think it's, it's, the film points a light, or it kind of, focuses on what it's like to be black in 2018, in the 21st century. And, it's reminded me of like Get Out in that respect. But I appreciated this more. I liked this more than Get Out. I think it was a little braver and a little more, just braver is the better word. I think it took a few more risks. I really loved the the whole concept of like a white voice, which was, not everyone could make that work, and he made that work really well in this movie. And it's a super weird plot and just very, it's kind of hard to watch at times, but in a really satisfying way, like a train wreck. It's hard to watch, but you can't look away. And I love the performances. Lakeith Stanfield is just crushing it. He's having such a great, he was also in Get Out. He's on Atlanta as well. Really, really good actor. And Tessa Thompson as well is blowing up right now. Loving her performances and everything. But yeah, it's such a, it's almost like I don't really want to talk about it too much. It's a movie you got to experience. You can't even, it does not fit into a box at all. It's, like I said, it's funny a lot of the time. It's dramatic. It's almost scary a few times. But yeah, just super, super unique film and just satisfying in so many ways. I just really loved it. I can't even, like I said, it's hard to articulate exactly what goes on in this movie.
There's a scene where I think it's like Keith Stanfield and another character. I don't remember who it was exactly, but they're at odds. They're having a conversation. I think it might have been Stephen Yeun's character. I don't know. But anyway, they're having an argument where they're being polite, and it's like this satirical kind of like back and forth of like this corporate kind of politeness that's like double talk and double speak and just really passive aggressive, and it's one of my favorite scenes of the year. But yeah, that movie is really good. And had I watched less movies, it probably would have made my top 10, but
nice.
Yeah. Yep. So that brings me to my number 5. And my number 5 movie is Hereditary. Oh man. Okay.
Love it.
Yes.
Love Hereditary.
Oh yeah.
I might talk about that movie too.
Me too.
Yep. And, so I'll be brief, but Hereditary had a very, a very harsh impact on me. So there is a scene, I'm not going to give it away, but anyone who's seen it knows what scene I'm talking about, that propels the movie into its next act, or it's like the second, I don't think half, but the second act of the movie. The way that sequence is shot, and the way that it's handled, and the fallout of that scene, the way that a character just reacts to it, and it's very internal and just very, I can't describe it, but that single sequence alone stuck with me for, I'm not joking, it was 2 weeks later, I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about that, and I'm having this just visceral reaction to it, just being just so disturbed by it.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Can I just say,
yeah.
After I saw that, I watched it the night before we left for a family vacation to Florida. And so I drove the whole way there, and I would just kind of be quiet for a little while, and my wife would be like, what's the matter? Are you okay? And I'd be like, I'm just thinking about that movie. I'm thinking about that scene last night.
Yep. Just one of, and it's not even that, it's not this one scene did this to me, so it is number 5 on my top 10. The movie as a whole is incredible. The way that it deals with grief and family dynamics is just so incredible. That dinner scene between Alex Wolff, Toni Collette, and Gabriel Byrne is so it is one of the best scenes I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
Toni Collette, I'm so disappointed that she was not nominated for a Golden Globe. I'm not surprised, but I'm very disappointed. If she doesn't get an Oscar nomination for it, I will be so mad.
Yeah.
But the movie just gets under your skin so much, and in such a good way. Mike, we've talked a lot about how I have kind of drifted away from horror movies and the horror genre and everything. And you and I have had conversations, and we've all had conversations in the pod chat about this, that it's like you talk a lot about how like, oh, kids, like your students will kind of put up a front like, oh, this wasn't scary. Like in our top 10 of last year, we were talking about It, and you were saying that how it bothered you that, you know, the mark of a horror movie is whether or not it scares you and like makes you like scared. And like the thing that Hereditary made me kind of come to terms with and even recontextualize how I view horror movies in general is that it's not that I'm seeking out like a jump scare or a gross out scare or anything. Like I am specifically seeking out the unsettled fear, like the idea that like something can happen that can just obliterate your world. That is like the deepest fear that I can experience, and
Absolutely.
it's a very difficult thing to achieve that in a film and have it be as emotionally resonant as Hereditary was. And like it worked for me so much. Like it is just incredibly intense. It took me 5 or 6 months to bring myself to actually watch it again. And like when I'm getting to a certain point of the movie, I'm like fidgeting on my couch and like I'm just bracing myself for the feeling. And it's such, God, I loved it so much. Also kind of a running theme through a lot of the movies that are really acclaimed in 2018, but first time director, Ari Aster.
Ari Aster. Yep.
Wow.
Incredible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can't wait to see what he does next.
Me too.
Yep. So that's my number 5. That is Hereditary.
Love it.
So, yep. So Michael, what about your number 4?
Top 4. Speaking of Michael, my number 4 is Halloween. David Gordon Green's Halloween. And, so we are in league with the Nerds You're Looking For. One of their main hosts is Pat Kuhn, and he's been a friend of mine since 7th grade. I've known him most of my life now. And, he and I kind of had a conversation about our top 10s, and I was talking about putting Halloween a little lower because I was kind of like, you know, it's probably not as powerful a movie as Black Klansman, which is an honorable mention. It's number 11. And he goes, yeah, but when I started thinking about my top 10s, I started thinking about what movies am I going to watch again or frequently again. And he looked at me and he said, you will watch Halloween again every Halloween for the next couple of years. And I'm like, shit. Yeah, you're right. If that's not a top 10 movie, then I don't know what is. So, you know, I bumped it up. I thought about it a little more. I thought about what that movie meant to me, and it landed at number 4. I think the new Halloween is great. I've gone at length. I did a pretty passionate review of it, on the Obsessive Viewer, not on Obsessive Viewer, but on Letterboxd. And I know that there are some complaints about kind of the third act twist. If we ever did a spoil-free or a spoiler-heavy episode, I would love to go into detail with that, because I don't find that third act twist to be a flaw. I think it's a real feather in the movie's cap. I'll just say, one of the things that always kind of irked me about every Halloween sequel is the kind of mysticism surrounding what's going on. Like, there's something magical about Halloween, or there's something magical about Michael. I think this movie continues the first one in that it undoes that magic, and it's just scary. It's just a guy in a mask, and it's Halloween. It happens to be these people he decides to kill. Anyway, like I said, I'd love to talk about it more. I just, that long tracking shot I thought was perfect. I thought the music was excellent. The performances were great. Laurie Strode is fantastic. And I thought Michael was scary again. I just loved it so much. I got to see it twice in theaters, and I was, just thrilled both times.
Very nice.
Nice. I agree with the whole quote unquote twist thing.
Thanks,
One of my favorite parts. One of my favorite parts of the movie, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I need to watch it again, and I don't know. Okay, so a week or so ago I started to rewatch it, and then honestly, like after like 10 or 15 minutes, and granted, I think it was kind of late, and it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, I have this amount of time until I want to go to bed, and I have this amount of time before I'm probably actually going to go to bed. So, like, I can watch Halloween and it'll fall, like, in between those two times. But, like, I don't think I was in the right frame of mind to rewatch it, because I was just, like, kind of, I don't know, I just wasn't as engaged with it as I was in the theater, and that kind of scared me a little bit because I did enjoy it quite a bit. I did have some issues here and there, but yeah, I'll need to revisit it, and we will have to do like something like we'll have to bank an episode or something. And
Sure. Well, it comes out on Blu-ray on Friday. Maybe we do a bonus episode.
I like that.
Cool.
Totally. Yeah. So Tiny, how about your number 4?
Yes, my number 4 is The Tale, previously mentioned by Matt. I can't expand on much you said because you said it so well, but
I monopolized it.
No, you're good. Like the only thing I'll re-emphasize is that this is one of the bravest things I think a person could do. Like, it's one of the bravest projects I've ever heard of a person doing, to have probably what is one of the worst things that can happen to you. You choose to revisit it, and I say probably one of the worst things because I've never experienced it. So I'm not trying to downgrade what happened to her. I'm trying to be respectful, but to take one of the worst things that can happen to you and not only turn it into a story, but make it from your own personal perspective and include yourself in the story. You write it yourself, you direct it yourself, you leave your own name in it. That is just unbelievably brave, even in the quote unquote Me Too era right now, with all that in the sphere. Just unbelievably brave, and like, I don't know how she had the courage to make it. I'm just blown away by it. I also, again, I'm kind of reiterating what you said, but the way the memory was addressed, the way that she kind of had, it's funny, like, she had these conversations with the characters from the past.
Yes.
That was just incredible. And I think the most shocking one, or the hardest one, was when she spoke to her 13-year-old self.
Yes.
And because every person has a lifelong struggle of trying to understand themselves. And sometimes things happen to you that are so horrible that you can't understand yourself. And this was her attempt to overcome that, or to make that connection with herself and to understand what she went through and who she is as a person. Because I don't think she really knew who she was necessarily. And that moment, that scene in the film, just really tackled that head on. And that's just so hard. Again, that's so hard for a person to do. And, Jennifer Fox chose to put it in a film. That's just absolutely blows me away. And just to talk about the performances really quick, Elizabeth Debicki had one of the best years in
really
acting, because she was my favorite thing about the movie Widows, which is a movie I didn't care for a lot, but she was fantastic. And she was, like, villainous and horrid in this film in such a subtle way that I really appreciated. And Laura Dern's one of my favorite actresses, and
mine too.
Yeah, she was great in this as well.
And Jason Ritter was just as,
he was gross.
Yes,
just gross as hell.
It's just it reminded me a little bit of that movie we saw at Indie Film Fest a few years ago, Wildlike.
Yeah.
Just the way that this movie depicts just a predator is just it's gross and unsettling. And I was so hung up on the memory aspect of the movie that I kind of forgot about the kind of documentary style that it was employed. That just really brings home just the catharsis of the movie for her that I assume she achieved in making it, and just the courage that it took to make it. But
to share your catharsis with the silver screen, man, again, that's just unbelievable.
It's
brave.
It's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, is because it is indicative of just the power of the medium of film. It's just it's really it really stands out a lot. Yeah, so my number 4 is there's no way to transition from that to this, but Avengers Infinity War. I loved everything about this movie. I was talking about it on The Nerds You're Looking For, that I didn't have the context of the comics. I don't have the context of like growing up reading these comics or whatever. What I do have is the 10 years of build up toward this, spread over 19 to 20 different movies, all dealing with different characters and different team ups and everything. Like this was the event of 2018 in terms of film. And I am still just so astounded that they pulled it off. Like, just the fact that this exists is mind-blowing to me, because it is such an achievement. Like, everything should have been working against this movie. Like, it should have felt cluttered. I didn't feel like it was cluttered at all. The MCU, over the course of a decade, has had a long-running problem with villains. Thanos, this is Thanos' movie, and he has such a great arc. Like, you have, like, he is an insane character, but his motivations for wanting to wipe out half the universe follow this just really well developed internal logic that goes, like, is completely insane and off the wall, but it follows so well with who that character is. And it's remarkable. And it has some of the most impressive, like, comic book action scenes that I've seen. The fight on Titan is amazing. Like, I think that that's one of the most fun, like, team up, like, superhero sequences, I've ever seen. And it's so great. And, like, the emotional arcs and how they're resolved. Like, yes, the big thing at the end of Infinity War is 90%, I'm 99% sure that it's going to be mostly reconciled in a way that's going to make it less impactful upon rewatches. But in the moment, it was still pretty great. And to single out one actor, I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think in Peter Parker, he's phenomenal in this movie, and really the whole ensemble is great. And I'm still blown away that we got this movie, that they pulled it off, and that by all accounts they're probably going to do it again here in a few months, and I can't wait.
Yep.
So that's my number 4. Mikey, we are on our top 3.
Top 3 of the year. And this is kind of one of those instances where I almost thought about at one point saying they're all tied for number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm kind of over, like, the ranked list thing, because it's just so hard. Or maybe there were just so many that I loved this year that I had a harder time than usual. But these top 3, my gosh, they're all movies I'll watch again, and they're all movies that deeply, deeply moved me for 3 kind of very different reasons, funny enough.
Sure.
Number 3 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which we spoke about at length on the last episode that I was on. So I'll try to keep it brief here. But I just thought that movie was so powerful. Like I've said, I think it's the best Spider-Man movie. I think it's a Spider-Man movie for everybody. It's a Spider-Man movie for a new generation, even though it still includes Spider-Man for my generation. I think the animation is brilliant. The one thing I will say is all the excitement about it getting Best Animated Feature, I'm a little surprised by that excitement. It's not like there was some heavy competition. I think it would be more exciting if it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I'm hoping out for, because I think it's that good. And I feel like if there was any movie where they were going to make a statement, like any movie is a viable option for Best Picture, I think Spider-Verse should be it, because I think it will also win the Best Animated Oscar, and that's cool to get that recognition, but nobody really remembers Best Animated Pictures. I want people to remember Spider-Verse for the moment that it was.
I loved it. Number 3.
I can't wait to see that. I haven't seen it yet.
It's awesome.
And I want to just quickly bring up that one of our listeners, Robert in Utah, one of our Patreon subscribers, he checked into the movie on Letterboxd, and maybe I'm reaching, but I feel like it's I don't know, maybe it's my vanity, but his check-in on Letterboxd, his review is, after rewatching this without my 3-year-old and hearing a 2-hour podcast dissecting it, this is my favorite movie of the year.
I'm dancing right now.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, and he
Robert,
and he
I
had a
assume
really,
you're talking about our podcast, and if you are, thank you. I agree with you. It's awesome. It's an awesome movie.
and I certainly hope he's talking about us.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But yeah, so I just wanted to shout him out. Follow him on Letterboxd at Bob is Going Ham.
Cool.
So yeah. So Tiny.
My number 3 is Hereditary.
Nice.
Which, fun note here, this includes the third horror film that I've mentioned, including my honorable mentions. That's the first time I've ever had 3 movies in contention for my top 10 that are in the horror genre.
Nice.
It's not one of my favorite genres. I still like it, and there's, like, Halloween's one of my favorite movies. So I like horror, but I don't see a lot of horror movies, and 3 of them were in contention for my top 10 this year. So that was a big year for horror for me. Matt already talked about it a lot. I agree with everything he said. I think it was, this isn't me bragging, but I don't get scared a lot at horror films. And this movie was scary, especially the climax, was just creepy as shit. They picked a really good house to film it in. And they, I don't know, the use of lighting was really impressive, I think, in that climax, and just made it even more eerier for me. And it was scary, and I was creeped out, and I was doing the thing where you're sitting there and you're looking over your shoulder because you're not sure what's behind you, like that. It was that effective on me. And that doesn't happen a lot to me. So that was the sign of a really good film, for me. Matt touched on the whole family aspect of it. I think it was, amidst all the horror, was some really well done drama. Specifically, I was going to mention the dinner scene that you talked about. Just all those pent up emotions and frustrations and just anger boiling over in that scene was incredible. I think Alex Wolff actually talked about how, like, he has some emotional scars from filming this movie, and like I can understand how he would, because that's got to be hard to film without feeling some of those emotions, and that was really impressive. Also, I think Millie Shapiro, an incredible performance amongst 2 hugely successful and quality actors in Toni Collette and Gabriel Byrne. You know, she managed to stand out amongst those 2 incredible actors. Toni Collette's probably one of my favorite actresses as well. But she was, Millie Shapiro was creepy, and she hit her performance out of the park. And the movie just in general had such a great tone to it. It didn't, it kind of used I wouldn't say a standard or like a derivative story, but we've kind of seen the whole possession thing before. It was all about the way they did it. You know, they made it their own and didn't recycle a lot of like scares from past horror films. They really made it their own, and I think that was incredibly refreshing to see in a movie like this. It's probably one of my favorite horror films ever. I mean, it's right up there. I think I even like it
Absolutely.
a little bit more than, I might actually like it a little bit more than It from
nice.
last year. So
Okay.
that's how great it was. I just really loved it, and I didn't even realize that Ari Aster was a first-time director. That's incredible. Again, can't wait to see what he does, like Matt said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Hereditary was fantastic.
Real quick, I was going to say not to brag, but it's totally to brag. Totally interviewed Alex Wolff a few years ago.
Nice.
So, just saying.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool because, like, it was at a red carpet thing for Heartland, and like he actually, like, on the mic, he said like, "Oh, what are you with? Oh, Obsessive Viewer. That's cool." So I was like, "Oh, hey, you said the name of the show." But anyway, yeah, sorry. Oh, it's my turn, isn't it?
Yes.
We're at my number 3.
Yes.
And my number 3 is Roma, which is Alfonso Cuarón's new movie that just came out on Netflix and released in theaters and everything. But this movie is, again, it's another movie that's a testament to filmmaking and what can be achieved in camera and on film. There are many moments in this movie that I don't understand how it's achieved, how it's timed, how it's like a signature of Alfonso Cuarón's filmmaking style throughout his entire career is long takes, just long uninterrupted takes that are more and more elaborate every time. Like I just recently rewatched Children of Men, and goddamn, that's a 5-star movie for me. Just incredible. But he does his camera work in this movie, which this is the first time that he is his own DP on a movie. Because I think there was like a scheduling conflict with Emmanuel Lubitsky, who he works with regularly. But anyway, the movie is gorgeous, like absolutely stunning. It's about a family in Mexico in the early 1970s and their maid, and a year of her life working with this family and for this family, and she goes through horrific things that is depicted in Alfonso Cuarón's style, that he's just letting the camera go, and things are happening in camera for extended takes, and it's just like, it's so gripping. And like I said in our review, that the first 20 minutes, the first half hour to 45 minutes of this movie isn't necessarily captivating, but visually it's stunning. Like there are moments early in the movie where I was watching it and I was thinking, this is like gonna be considered a classic. This has the potential to be like a movie that in 50 years, like douchebag teenage kids are going to watch to be pretentious and everything, like, you know, like I did with Seven Samurai. Like this is the type of movie that's going to be. But it just resonated with me because it is the story about this woman and just her daily life and how certain things happen to her and how she deals with that and the family unit as well. And I mentioned this, I mentioned that the movie in our review, I mentioned that it, kind of makes references to or homages to, Cuarón's other work, and the most deliberate one, or the most in your face one, is the maid Cleo takes the children to see a movie. And the movie is a space movie where there are two astronauts in spacesuits, with one has like a jetpack and everything. And when we reviewed it, I had watched it one time and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. It's kind of in your face. That's kind of weird. But I mean, it's kind of a funny little like homage to Gravity. But when rewatching it, I realized that the whole hook of the movie is that this is a movie that Alfonso Cuarón feels very personal about, because it is his memories of his childhood and the maid that that his family had when he was growing up. And when I was watching it again, I realized that this is an actual movie. Like the movie is Marooned from 1969. So what he did was he showed us the like inspiration for him to make Gravity decades later. And I just thought that was really just kind of weird in a meta sense and just really cool. But yeah, just the visuals of this movie are breathtaking. Like when I was rewatching it, I was thinking I could just turn the subtitles off and just watch this again and like not understand what exactly they're saying. But since I've seen it a couple times, like I know like the beats and everything, but like I want to watch it without the distraction of seeing the subtitles, because I want to see everything that's in the frame. And Alfonso Cuarón is just a genius at filling the frame and doing these elaborate takes that are still, I just don't understand how he achieved it, and it's so elaborate and great. But anyway, that's my number 3. That's Roma. It's freaking gorgeous, and I really, really hope that it's another movie that was playing at on the north side, and it wasn't at an AMC. So I didn't go see it because I'm cheap, but I really hope that when the Oscar nominations come out that they re-release it in AMC theaters so I can see it without, having to go super far out of my way and pay out of pocket. So that's Roma. That's my number 3. And, we're down to the top 2, Mike.
My number 2 is 8th Grade, directed by Bo Burnham, which we have talked about on here. And one of the things I love so much about this movie, is how, aside from everything that's already been said about it, is it really felt like a project that Bo Burnham was super, super passionate about. And so I've listened to him on a lot of podcasts. I've heard him kind of sit down in a couple of essays, and I wanted to know everything there is to know about him and the process of making this film. And he's really kind of a student of the modern internet, and how it has changed us socially. And Tiny, you kind of talked about, the main character's kind of positivity throughout. And I think Bo Burnham is trying to investigate that. And I love how he does it in this kind of, quirky little, not seriously dramatic film, but it's just such a cool glimpse at like something he's interested in, his mind, and really what the internet is kind of doing to our brains and society, I guess you could say. That said, I also think it perfectly encapsulates social anxiety, what it's like to be young and awkward. The scene where she goes to the pool party is, it's hard to watch, for most of it. But then kind of like you said earlier, Tiny, where the dad comes in and kind of makes his peace with her, it's just so, it's so feel good in all the right ways. And it's a movie I imagine I'll watch a lot. It's another movie also that, I think I'll try to find ways to show it to my students in the future, 'cause it's incredibly relevant.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And, Tiny, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. So yeah, you guys have already talked about it, and we talked about it on a past episode. So I won't go into too much detail, but that's the strongest emotional reaction I've ever had to a comic book movie, I think. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't quite expecting that. I think a lot of people have sort of dismissed the ending in a way, and I totally get that. A lot of people were like, well, it wasn't quite as impactful because we know that we're getting more after this, and so we know what's going to happen. And for whatever reason, I knew that those things were happening too. I knew that we were going to get more movies with some of these characters, but I was so involved in the movie that it's still that had no effect on my reaction to it. Mm-hmm. Like that knowledge in the real
awesome.
world.
I'm kind of jealous of you for that. Now, I was able to watch that and experience it the way they wanted us to experience. Like, I knew what they were going for, and the movie did such a good job leading up to it that it had earned that emotional payoff despite the meta knowledge that I had. I guess my reaction and negativity toward that ending is not with the film or the filmmakers, but the people in the audience who were like devastated by it, and like coming to me the next day. Again, I've said this 100 times on the podcast, but like teenagers, I'm a teacher, so they talk to me the next day. They're like, yeah, I cried at the end. And I'm like, did you really cry? Like, I get how the movie is making designs on us. It wants us to feel a certain way, but there's another movie coming. You know they're making a Spider-Man sequel. You know this. It's just like, I've kind of ranted about this before, but like nerd overreaction, like pseudo nerd overreaction, I found it to be very thick with this movie.
Tiny cried.
I babbled.
Did you?
I babbled like a brook.
Wow. Okay.
I babbled like a brook.
I guess I'm wrong. You just felt it more than I did.
No, you're not wrong. It's just that, like you said, this whole thing is subjective.
Yeah,
that's the nature of art, and yeah, I knew that. I knew there's a Spider-Man sequel. There's another Black Panther movie coming out. There's a whole other movie, whole other half to this story coming out.
Right.
But I was so into that movie, into Infinity War, that knowledge was so far in the back of my mind that it did not influence my reaction to those scenes.
That's. I mean, that's remarkable. Like I'm like stoked for you that you got to.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I think it's number 2 on my list. I think a lot of people. I think it made a lot of top 10 lists, but I think people had it lower down or they had it on honorable mentions because of that ending. And I don't disagree with that. Like I said, this is all, and like we've all said, this is subjective, and everyone reacts differently. So yeah, I totally get that. But yeah, like Matt mentioned the fight scene on Titan, and some of the other fight scenes were just so, I am amazed every time at how the Russo brothers can weave comedy into action. I mean, it's literally a punch is thrown and somebody cracks a joke. That's a hard thing to do, at least a hard thing to do genuinely. It can be very tongue-in-cheek, but they do it genuinely. Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the Wizards. One of my favorite lines of the whole series. And also, it's amazing how throughout the entire Avengers films that we've had so far, there's so many people involved. There's so many speaking roles. It's incredible how relevant everyone still is, and how, I mean, we're talking about, we got the Guardians of the Galaxy in here now. There's even more characters being introduced in this movie, and everyone is relevant. Everyone has lines. Everyone cracks a joke. Everyone is it's such satisfying character development amongst 4,900 characters. It's just crazy how they squeezed everyone in such a satisfying way. That is beyond skillful, and I was just blown away by all that. I can't wait. Again, like Matt said, in a few months when they do it all again, it's gonna be nuts. I'm gonna have to bring tissues.
Yeah, it's gonna be epic.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings me to my number 2, and I'll be brief because we've talked about this movie already, but it's Won't You Be My Neighbor? And to kind of piggyback off of what you guys have said about this movie, as a kid, I never watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I was not a Mr. Rogers fan, or it wasn't something I watched as a kid. And as I kind of grew up, it became like kind of this childlike, it's like this cynicism like attached itself to me at a young age. Like it wasn't cool to like Mr. Rogers, so I never watched it. And like, I just wasn't a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood fan or anything. And this documentary, like, even though I had no like affiliation or association with him, like I said this on the podcast earlier this year, but I honestly believe that Fred Rogers is like the closest thing we've ever had to like a legit superhero, because the way he could take these complex ideas, complex information and dispel it to children in a way that is their language and that they can understand it. And he had just this aura of positivity and just goodness to him that, like, the documentary it left me, first of all, it felt like I was just transported into this world of good, like, that was shielding me from the shittiness of the world around me, because we are so divisive. On the political spectrum and like culturally, everyone's at odds. Everyone is angry all the time. And so having a 2-hour reprieve from that world in the realm of this documentary, like, I felt this profound sense that when it was over, it was like, I have to go back to that. Like, I have to go back to everything. But for those like 2 hours or less than 2 hours, it was perfect. Like, I just was enveloped in this goodness that I loved. And it also left me wondering, like, what kind of person would I be if I had seen Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood growing up. Like, I really wonder, like, what kind of effect that program would have had on me, what kind of lasting effect. And it's kind of a shame that I missed out on it, but I can recognize just how beautiful his work was throughout his entire career. And it's just something that is incredible, and depicted beautifully in this documentary. So that's my number 2. That's Won't You Be My Neighbor? And, so, Mike, we're at our number 1 movie of the year. Hit us with it.
We're here. So this is one of, I've been keeping track, and we actually have 4 movies that are on all 3 of our lists. There is one that Matt has not talked about yet, so I won't spoil what all 4 of them are. I'll let Matt do that in a minute. But my number 1 is a movie that you guys have already talked about, and it's Hereditary. And you know, this movie, or at least the reaction to this movie, has been a little bit surprising to me. When the advertisements and the push for it first came out, they talked about this movie as like the scariest movie since The Exorcist, the scariest movie of all time. This movie will blow you away. You will lose sleep over this movie. And I'm finding the further we get from that movie, people don't think about that. They're kind of forgetting this movie, and I think people are overlooking it. I think it is absolutely those things. I think it's fantastic. I think it's terrifying, horrifying. I mean, like I said earlier, it wrecked me for a week after seeing this movie. I think even if you take out, right, even if you like pretend to be some calloused, like horror movies don't affect you or something, I still think the drama of the movie is enough to put this on a top 10 list. To see a family crumble because of this either hereditary disease they have or because of this demonic interference is really a trip to watch. And I think they all react naturally. It's cool to see the father kind of shut down over time. You guys mentioned the scene where Toni Collette's character blows up at the dinner table. I think that scene is masterful. And I also think Alex Wolff, after that dramatic scene that kind of kicks off Act 2, Matt, that you were talking about, the way he does nothing like a teenager would is perfect, and it's haunting, and we're like living with him in that moment as we hear his mother's reaction to what we're talking about. It's sheer brilliance. I mean, like I said, take out the scares, and I think it's a dramatic, brilliant piece of masterwork. And then you add in that it's terrifying. I think the final act is incredibly unsettling. There are a few images that I won't spoil that just with the sound design, and then finally they show what you're hearing, haunted me again for a week. If you don't find that scary, I have nothing for you. Right? If you don't, like, I'm not saying it has to keep you up at night. I'm sorry that I've made this rant before, but I'm just so passionate about. I'm not saying it has to have kept you up at night, or it doesn't have to have surprised you. But if you can't look at that and recognize that for most people is terrifying, that what you're watching is as objectively terrifying as terrifying can be, whether you slept that night or not, don't watch horror movies. Stay away. I don't want you in my group. And I'm sorry if that's exclusive. I just think, I love horror movies. I think I'm our resident horror expert. And so I watch a lot of garbage that I work very hard to find the good in. Truth or Dare was a movie that came out this year that was not very well received, but I really had a fun time with that movie. I liked that horror. But when you can blend an Oscar-winning drama with horror, there is no bigger center of that Venn diagram for me than what that did. I think it did it well last year, which is why it was my number one last year. And I don't know, Tiny, if I'm ready to say which one was better this year. But I do know in terms of movies that affected me and stuck with me the longest, and and a movie that I will argue for, Hereditary is far and away my movie of the year.
Nice.
Very well said.
Thanks.
And I know that we don't have much time or anything, but just to say, like, the media's tendency to qualify horror movies that are well regarded in critic circles as not horror is so unbelievably frustrating to me. Well,
that's a good conversation for another time for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just saying, Hereditary is a fucking horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Tiny.
Yes.
How about your number one movie of the year?
My number one movie of the year is Blind Spotting, which Matt mentioned earlier. I'm not a fan of throwing things into or including things on top 10 lists just because they're culturally relevant or because it has a certain poignancy for the time it was released. And I can say that I think this is, from my perspective, probably one of the most culturally relevant films of the year. But that's not necessarily why I picked it for my number one movie of the year. I do think one of the most troubling issues in our country, and I'm not trying to get political here, but one of the most troubling issues is how black people are still treated in our country. I mean, it's still a problem. If you don't agree that it is, you are incorrect. It's not a matter of opinion. Like Mike was saying earlier, some things are just facts. Some things are just true. And that is a truth that our country needs to deal with, and we're not dealing with it properly. And I love the way that it's depicted in this film. I have not seen a better example of how scary it is for a black guy to walk down the street at night in Oakland while a police car walks by than I have in this movie. I've never seen that done better in a film, and I was literally scared on the edge of my seat for the character in this film during that time, during that moment. And I think it talks about, it's so interesting how race is kind of flip-flopped. There's a really good line about how the white guy is actually like the scary black guy in this movie. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny, like, cause, gosh darn it, his name, the actor's name.
Raphael Casal?
The other guy.
Daveed Diggs.
Daveed Diggs, thank you. He's kind of the quote-unquote scary-looking black guy with his dreads, and, he's an ex-convict, all that stuff. He's out on probation. But the white guy is actually the scary dude. The guy that people need to worry about is the other guy. It's just kind of an interesting commentary. And the music is woven really well, or the raps and the rhyming and everything is woven very organically into the film. It doesn't seem over the top or frustrating or annoying or out of place. It's really relevant and crucial to the film. And I think that's another thing that's hard to achieve, because hip hop is so. Rap and hip hop, I have such a weird relationship with it, because sometimes I feel like a lot of the time it's not that great, but when it's good, it's amazing. And I think these guys who are in this film and their rap group is Clipping. I've listened to some of their music since I watched the movie. Mm-hmm. These guys are next level with their music, and it's like I tried to just listen to it while I was in the shower, like kind of one of those things, and I had to turn it off because I was like, I have to listen to this. I can't just have it playing in the background. Like it's that kind of music. I need to sit with it, and I think that speaks to the quality of the film and the music and the talent of these guys, frankly. And the comedy was really kind of shocking. It just kind of jabbed you. It kind of came out of nowhere a lot of the time in this movie, but I really appreciated it. These guys were funny. It's such a it's just such an important movie for right now, and I hate saying that because it's almost cheap or something. I don't know. I don't want to just pick a film because it's culturally relevant, but this movie's definitely that. But it's also so much more. I was just really impressed with how they were able to depict what it's like to be a black person in 2018 so well. And that's something that is difficult for me to relate to, obviously, being, like Matt said, being a 32-year-old white guy. They just made that so accessible in this movie. It's really impressive.
Absolutely. Great. So I'll round us out with my number one movie of 2018. It is, I made this joke on the Nerds You're Looking For, but I'm not going to make it here. Holmes and Watson. But, it's
Hilarious.
Anyway, my number one movie of 2018 is 8th Grade. And much like how Blockers was a choice for me because of the way that it deals with, like, the way that it spoke to my nostalgia as well as who I am as a person now. 8th Grade was kind of, I don't necessarily want to say revelatory, but it was a movie that had just such a deep and profound impact on me because, like, going into it, I was thinking, okay, Bo Burnham made a movie about an 8th grade girl. Okay, let's see it and kind of cringe at it and everything. But what I found watching the movie is that regardless of gender, the social anxieties and the nervous tics and the just all around insecurities of being a middle school kid are universal. And I was Kayla Day. Like, we were all Kayla Day. But this movie just had such a deep resonance to me because Tiny can attest to this. He knew me in junior high. I was incredibly awkward and just very, I don't want to say more because I don't want to hurt my own feelings, but no, like, it was a very painful time, as it is for everyone else. And, like, to see a movie that depicts that so perfectly and in such a great kind of visceral way is astounding. And add to that the fact that Elsie Fisher gives an incredible performance. It really spoke to me on a very deep level. And there are moments, I've rewatched this a few times now, and it's like, it hits me every time. Like, the scene that we talked about with Josh Hamilton's character as her father talking to her, it's like, it is so beautiful. And, like, the payoff of that is just so, like, it brought me nearly to tears, like, every time that I watched it, because it is so powerful, because you know that's exactly what she needs. And what makes it even better is that he tries to connect with her so much throughout the movie, and she just doesn't hear him. And, like, she has to grow as a person before she can, accept his dorkiness for what it is.
Yeah.
And just, like, their connection and everything, like, it's so beautifully told. And the things that she goes through in the movie, like, it runs the gamut of, like, the socially awkward at a party, thing that she was kind of forced into being in, or the people throwing the party were forced to invite her. So she feels so insecure and everything. And she's crushing on another student, and she's, I'll say this, to kind of jump ahead a little bit. The scene, like, there's one scene that is so heartbreaking and so relevant to us today. And I say that, but it's just as relevant any time, really. But there is a scene where it's just heartbreaking, and you see the ramifications of that in a very real way. And it's just so beautifully constructed. And I have the utmost respect for Bo Burnham. Like, I've been saying since I saw this movie that I want to see what he does next in terms of filmmaking, but also, more importantly, I hope that he has something more to say. Like, I hope that he has stories to tell, because it's not like, that's what kind of separates 8th Grade from really all of the directorial debuts on our top 10 lists, that it doesn't feel like, oh, this is a breakout piece of filmmaking from a young filmmaker. It feels like this is a story that this filmmaker, that this man had to tell, and he chose to do that through film.
Yeah.
And so
Good
I don't
point.
see it as, oh, Bo Burnham is the next hot filmmaker. I see it as, I hope that Bo Burnham has more stories to tell in this medium. And it also helps that he's a freaking genius at everything else that he does. So I just hope that I hope we see more. I hope he has more stories. And I was just so emotionally affected by 8th Grade, and I adored it so much. And that's why it's my number one movie of 2018.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yes. Yep. So we have other things, but Mike, I know that we're running over your time.
Yeah, I'd really love to wrap it up. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're fine. I do want to briefly announce the big list challenge thing.
Okay.
So, this year in 2019, we are doing something different or something new. We have chosen a list to tackle. So it's called the OV List Challenge. If you go to any of our Letterboxds, you'll find it in our lists, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Basically, we have chosen a list, and this year's list is Roger Ebert's great movies. Through the course of his career, he named, there are 365 movies on this list that he considers great movies. So what we are doing is we are going to try to watch we're going to see how many of those we can watch in a year. And it's going to be kind of tricky because obviously we all watch the different amount of movies and everything, but kind of the idea is that we're going to try it, and then at the end of the year, we're going to have an episode dedicated to the great movies, Roger Ebert's great movies. Whoever watches the most movies from that list will pick what list we do for next year. So we definitely encourage everyone to go to Letterboxd, clone that list, watch the movies with us, and we'll talk more about that in December. And for context, of the 365 movies, I've seen 67. Tiny has seen 50, and Mike has seen 28, according to Letterboxd.
Geez, okay.
So we are going to go with basically how many we watch this year. So it's not going to be like, I'm going to watch 10, so I've watched 60. It's going to be
right
this year.
Gotcha.
Cool.
I think I have some other stuff I want to say, but we can let Mike go because it's all just filler stuff for the end of the episode. Mike, to call back your earlier stuff, I love you, buddy.
Love you too.
Yeah. And I'm really
Tiny, I love you too.
Love you too, buddy.
and Tiny, I like you a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
I love
And
you guys.
you there you are.
Oh, what is that?
Oh, I guess Austin Powers. I don't know.
Oh, gotcha. So anyway, I'm super excited at the prospect of having you on the podcast more often this year.
Love it. That's the plan.
Yes. Next week or later here in a couple days, we're going to have a bonus review with me and Mike that's already been recorded and edited. Mm-hmm. We reviewed Escape Room, so watch that on the feed. And we're going to, I guess, say bye to Mike, I guess.
Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you liked my top 10. Matt, I'm going to leave it up to you to give us a hashtag at the end for who's still listening. But thank you guys for listening to us rant. I am going to go to bed. I got to get up with the kids early in the morning. But listeners, thank you. 2018 was an awesome year. I'm excited for more numbers in 2019, to be on this podcast a little bit more, and to talk to you guys. So, peace.
Hell yeah.
Bye, Mike.
Love you, Mike. See you later.
Bye.
Okay, so we're good for another 4 hours.
Oh, God.
So anyway, to kind of wind down the episode, I do have I wish I would have said this with Mike on, but he'll listen to the episode, hopefully. In addition to our OV list challenge, I have set up for myself, this is going to be a little insane, 6 lists
Oh boy.
on Letterboxd. So You can find that, like, if you go to my, basically go to my Letterboxd, go to my lists, find the tag for 2019 challenge. It has all the lists that I have, designated for this year. So let me run these down real quick. I've mentioned the Letterboxd official subreddit. They have a film club. They actually just decided to make it bi-weekly instead of weekly, which is great for me because it gives me time to watch the movies. So I'm going to be doing that as much as I can throughout the year. I'm going to hopefully stay with it. Back in October, Mike gave me a list of 20 horror movies that he wanted me to watch in Shocktober. I watched 3 of them. So my horror movie homework assigned by @I am Mike White is going to be another goal for this year, to actually get through the rest of the 20. And then there are a few other things. So there's a 2019 weekly comedy challenge. It's just a Letterboxd challenge. I'm super excited about it because it's basically every week I watch a different comedy movie with certain parameters. Like the first week, which I still need to watch, is any comedy with Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, like, I'm really excited because later in it is like, choose a comedy with a lead actor who you don't like. So I picked, like, I don't remember which one, but I picked a Melissa McCarthy, one.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's just like cool, like, themes like that. So, super excited about that. I also am doing the birth year challenge, which I was born in 1986, so I'm 32 years old. So I picked 32 movies from 1986 to watch. And if I don't watch it, like, there's no set time frame, but if I don't watch it by my birthday, June 26th, give me something nice, I'll have to add a movie to it to make it 33. And then my long-running project that I'm hoping to finish this year is my top 100 favorite movies of all time. I'm still working diligently at that. Then finally, this was kind of a last-minute thing that was kind of inspired by Chris Tansky, who he was on the podcast long ago. But I think, like, he did something similar, but I kind of ran with it and made it my own. I'm calling it 30 from 30, not to be confused with 3430. A sports thingy, I think.
Yeah, ESPN.
Yeah. So 30 from 30 is basically, it's 2019. I've picked 30 movies from 1989, and I'm going to try to watch as many of them as I can. These are all movies that I haven't seen or I have seen, but it's been long enough that it's not logged on Letterboxd, and my Letterboxd goes all the way back to 2007. So yeah, so those are the things I'm going to work on throughout the year. I don't know if I will, but I'll put links to all these lists in the show notes and everything. And yeah, do you have any goals for 2019 as far as movie watching?
Yes, with AMC A-List, this is more financial than anything, but in order to have justify the cost, I need to see 2 movies a month. Mm-hmm. So my goal is 24 theater viewings for the year. Which we didn't say on the podcast. You got A-List. I got A-List, yes. I didn't say that. Yeah, I got an A-List, so I'm looking forward to it. You know, I already went through the app just to see what the process is like, and like I'm really impressed with the app. Right. It's very easy to use. Oh, it is so, like, when Fekkes was on talking about it, he's like, it's idiot proof. Like, yeah, and I am the perfect example of that. So there's that, and then like I said, I like my total viewings to be at least 150. So I'd like to hit 150 next year. I haven't I didn't even crack 100 last year. This year I barely did. So that'd be a nice comeback to be at like 150 for next year. So nice. Let's see. So yeah, you have A-List now. I wore you down. Yeah, you did. To get A-List. So now my goal for 2019 is to convince Fekkes to get on Letterboxd. But yeah, that's awesome. And I'm hoping that we can see more movies in the theater so that you can, like, you and Kyrsten can still duke it out for my movie theater companion. Yeah, I'm title. Still gunning for that belt. Yes. You made a belt, right? Sure. Yeah, why not? You better. Yeah. So let's see okay, so I have I'll do that later. What I want to do now real quick is my worst movies of 2018. Okay. I probably should have done that before, but whatever. So I have 2 lists. There's disappointments of 2018 and worst movies of 2018. So I'll start with disappointments. First Man. I was not fond of the movie because it felt like it wasn't
I didn't really get into the biopic aspect of it. It felt like it was more of a timeline, and it deals with some thematic elements, and the way that it portrays Neil Armstrong is authentic to who he was, but it does it in a way that focuses on one part of his life, and it just didn't really resonate for me that much, I guess. Having said that, though, the moon landing sequence and all the space sequence and test flight sequences are just stunning. Like, they're really good.
Cool.
Mid-90s by Jonah Hill, which is funny because this is another directorial debut. I talked about it on the podcast. I really didn't like it. It felt so directionless and aimless, and it just felt like there was something that was so lacking in it that I couldn't connect to it. Next up in disappointments was Solo: A Star Wars Story. I again couldn't connect to it, didn't like it. I'm not a fan of Star Wars. That's just how it is. Then finally, disappointments, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I would love to be invested in a long-running series set in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, penned by the woman who created that universe. But what we've got in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and now Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, I just don't care, at all. So yeah. But anyway, real quick, the worst movies of 2019, or 2018, sorry. Holmes and Watson, it's as unfunny as you have heard, and it is as much of a, drain on comedy as you've heard. It's really not good. Welcome to Marwen. Kyrsten and I did a very full review that I was actually very proud of because I got a unique voice in Kyrsten having her opinion on that, because it's from the perspective of a woman, and this movie kind of really it's kind of a backhanded misogynistic movie. It's kind of this creepy, this is a thriller but made in a whimsical, it's like they don't know what their subject is, because the subject, as it's depicted, is a creepy fucking story, but they do it in this whimsical way that is supposed to be endearing. But I'm just thinking, get her out of the house, get her away, put a restraining order on this guy. That's not fair, because he's been emotionally damaged and everything, but it's also he's being enabled by everyone in his life, and it's someone should sit down and be hey, this isn't cool. Maybe cool it a little bit. Yeah. So, welcome to Marwen. Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, didn't care about it. Game Over Man, the guys from Workaholics, I don't care. I don't remember anything about it really. The Grinch, I wanted to take a nap during it. Mortal Engines just wasn't for me. Teen steampunk. Kind of really just lazy storytelling, really. But my kind of worst movie of 2018 was Life Itself. I didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime now. It's just very disjointed. It's very hokey and sentimental, and tries to get an emotional reaction out of the viewer, but in a manipulative way rather than an organic way. And I couldn't buy into it. I really didn't like Life Itself. So yeah. What next? Okay, I'm kind of grasping here. Okay. So we're gonna wind down. We're almost done, I promise. Any other topics you want to bring?
No.
Okay. So I kind of want to set aside some time to just welcome any new listeners, because I don't know about anyone listening, but I seek out year in review episodes from podcasts because I love hearing about, people's passion about film and TV, and feeling how they are about getting feelers out for how they felt about the year in total. So if you are a new listener to the podcast, if this is your first episode of the podcast, I just want to give you a rundown of what the Obsessive Viewer is. As I said at the top, we are a movie and TV podcast. We have kind of a rotating roster of guest or recurring co-hosts. So the main co-hosts are me, Tiny, and Mike. Mike doesn't get to be on the podcast as frequently as we would like him to be, but that's going to hopefully be rectified in 2019. But that's kind of the main roster. And then we have recurring co-hosts in Fekkes and Kyrsten. Fekkes is a friend of ours. His name's Robert Fekkes. He's a great dude, and he watches a lot of stuff. And then Kyrsten is Kyrsten Leister. She's appeared in several episodes of the podcast over the last several months and has been they've both been great assets to the podcast. So I want to mention just quick highlights of episodes that you can seek out to listen to if you are a new listener to the podcast. So real quickly, if you want to hear me, Mike, and Tiny, as you heard in this episode, talk about our favorite stuff and movies and everything, and really this episode is just to catch up, go listen to OV242. It's an extended potpourri episode. Potpourri is a section of the podcast where we talk about whatever we want. It's a very fun episode, very great. Mike tells a really great story about movie theater anxiety and having to sit next to someone who is very talkative and disruptive. If you want to hear just me and Tiny on the podcast doing our back and forth thing, OV237, in which we reviewed Pan's Labyrinth for Patreon subscriber Robert. I really love that review. That was such a fun review, and it was a blast. For me and Mike, check out 247. It's a letterboxed potpourri where we just kind of go back and forth over each other's Letterboxd diary, and we kind of rapid fire like tell each other what we thought of each movie. For me and Fekkes, check out OV264, which is our review of Aquaman. It's a lot of fun, and I also talk about the American Meme and fucking Kevin Spacey's Let Me Be Frank video. That's so bizarre. Finally, if you want to hear me and Kyrsten, check out OV246. That's a movie theater potpourri where we talked about a lot of different movies we saw in the theaters. And I'll put links to all this in the show notes. We also have extensive film festival episodes and also movie review episodes. I'll put links to all that in the show notes. Oh, God. Okay, Tiny. One last thing.
Okay.
And I promise that we're almost done.
Okay.
Podcast stats.
Yeah.
For 2018, Tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have two other podcasts.
We do?
Yeah, a little bit. Anthology is my solo podcast where I'm reviewing The Twilight Zone and Black Mirror and contemporary science fiction anthology shows. And then Tower Junkies is a podcast where Tiny and I talk about our love of Stephen King and his magnum opus, The Dark Tower series. Both podcasts are currently on hiatus, and eventually we'll pick them back up, but it's just we're both at a point in our lives where we probably would be better served doing Obsessive Viewer, focusing on Obsessive Viewer than trying to split, than trying to pretend like we're unbreakable and just like split our attention over 3 podcasts, because we would just be like, we would shatter like glass.
God.
I don't know where that came from. So we will eventually relaunch those at some point, but they are currently on a hiatus. I can't say for certain when they'll be relaunched, but they're still in our thoughts. So Tiny, the podcast. So this is episode 266. Mm-hmm. And so previous to this, we've had 265 episodes. That's how math works. So overall, the podcast that we've had for 5.5 years, we have released 17 days, 5 hours, 25 minutes, and 28 seconds worth of audio.
Jeez.
So if you're a new listener, you've got at least 2 or almost 3 weeks of 2019 mapped out for you.
Oh my God.
So I want to run down some episodes or some stats for 2018. We released on Obsessive Viewer a total of 35 episodes. That is an increase from last year. Last year we only released 32 episodes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that accounts for 35 episodes is 2 days worth of audio. 4 of those episodes were Patreon reviews, which accounted for 7 hours. We did... So a peek behind the curtain, the podcast is normally, or it used to be, a topic-driven podcast where we would take a topic and talk about it for an hour and then do potpourri. But we've been gravitating more away from that and toward movie review episodes which I personally think is when we're at our best. So last year in 2018, first of all, in 2017, we released 15 movie review episodes. We reviewed 15 movies in 2017. In 2018, that's the next one, is 26. We did 26 movie review episodes, 10 extended potpourris, a total of 7 bonus or special episodes or live event episodes. Heartland was 4 episodes, which I was really proud of what we did with Heartland. We did 4 episodes. That's 7.5 hours worth of content. I was really proud because that's 4 episodes that have filmmaker interviews, and each episode has a review of a movie that we saw at Heartland. And I was really proud of the work we did there.
Nice.
So, to round us out, we had, Mike was on 4 episodes of the podcast. Which I'm really, really excited that it's going to be more this year. Fingers crossed. He was on for a total of 9 hours and 7 minutes in 2018. Fekkes was on 6 episodes for 11.5 hours. And Kyrsten, surprisingly enough, was on 9 episodes of the podcast.
Wow.
For 18 hours and 17 minutes.
Dang.
That's going to go right to her head. And it's funny because our longest episode of the year was, excluding the year in review episode, which if you're listening to this now, you know that this is the longest one too. Excluding our year in review episode, or the longest episode of 2018 was OV266, a movie theater potpourri with me and Kyrsten, where we talked for 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and funny enough, on the flip side of that, the shortest episode was OV240, which was her first episode on the podcast, and I feel like that was because I was having her on the podcast, and I was like, we should make this short, just thinking, like, just to see, because, but yeah, she did great, and she's a recurring co-host now, but it's just like, I think it was more anxiety, like, I don't know, it was like an imposition on her to have her on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, to round us out for real, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, in which we do Patreon exclusive releases specifically for Patreon on a private RSS feed. Pretty much every time we release an episode, this episode notwithstanding, or this episode is excluded from that, we release a short 15-20 minute episode where we are just kind of bullshitting back and forth. We have a little topic that we do, kind of a warm-up thing. So you can support us on Patreon for the minimum amount of $1 per month. That'll get you access to the RSS feed. If you want to donate more, that's great. Friend of the show, Ben Sears, he made a substantial donation. He is actually going to be a guest on the podcast here in a few weeks to talk about the Oscar nominations. Can't wait to have him on and meet him and everything.
Totally.
He actually just joined Letterboxd, and he hasn't posted anything. Like, he's posted a couple reviews, and they're like really good reviews.
Nice.
So go follow him at Ben Sears. Okay, so and then speaking of Patreon, and I promise this is the last thing. In 2018, we released 11 Patreon exclusive episodes to the feed. So if you supported us on Patreon over the course of 2018, you received 6 hours and 42 minutes of exclusive content specifically for you as a thank you for supporting us. And those 11 episodes break down to 2 episodes that were commentary tracks that I recorded myself, totaling 3 hours and 53 minutes. And then the bread and butter of the Patreon RSS feed is the mini episodes that we released that I just mentioned. We released 9 of those episodes for 2 hours and 48 minutes. And that is just going to increase a ton this year because we got kind of a late start to that because I came up with it late in the year. Okay, so I think that'll do it. If anyone's still listening, Mike told me to give a hashtag. If you're still listening to this, send Mike a tweet that says hashtag Matt needs water. Also tag me and Tiny at Obsessive Tiny at Obsessive Tiny and at Obsessive Viewer. Mike's Twitter handle is I am Mike White. And again, follow us on Letterboxd. It's going to be a great year. We are so thankful that you guys have stuck with us for so long. We're going to hit 6 years podcasting this year. Huge huge. I'm so pleased and happy that you guys are sticking with us. Tiny, any parting thoughts?
Man, it was a really good year for movies.
It really was.
Yeah, and we did a lot of podcasting. I think with the other podcasts included, we it's almost something every week. It's pretty consistent. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Tower Junkies, we had like a bunch of episodes, but Anthology I haven't touched since like February. So sorry guys. But anyway, so as we said before when we said bye to Mike, we are going to have we're going to have a bonus episode reviewing Escape Room, and that's going to come out in a couple days. And then next week, I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we'll review something that me and Tiny see on A-List.
Maybe.
With A-List, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the upside is of that idea. And then maybe we can get some like replicas of our podcast going. Okay. Well, I know that you're tired as a dog, so we need to find a Dog's Way Home for Tiny. Those are 3 movies that are coming out this week.
Not getting those at all.
Okay, A Dog's Way Home looks terrible.
Okay.
Replicas is a new Keanu Reeves sci-fi movie, and the upside is Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart.
Wow.
So yeah, having said that, thank you guys so much for listening to us. Happy New Year. Happy 2019. Hope you guys had a great 2018, and hope you stick with us for this year, this 9.5-hour episode notwithstanding. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Hey, Tiny, I'm back.
Okay, good deal. Matt's still gone. He said that I think it makes sense for him to read off Kyrsten and Fekkes' top 10 really quick before we get into ours.
Okay, sure.
It'll be brief.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a good idea?
Yeah.
Is that okay, Mike? Are you mad?
No, man, that'll work.
Okay, cool.
Am I mad? Is that fine? Is that gonna work? I'm super excited. This has nothing to do with the podcast, and this is a really dumb thing. But you can see over there. See those?
Yeah.
So those
Yes.
are my comic boxes, right? Those are all
Oh,
my,
Yeah.
okay.
those are all my comics.
I was looking at the posters.
Oh, okay. Those. I'm talking about these.
There you go.
I like.
Yeah.
I like
Gotcha.
trying to do it like in the mirror. Anyway, I got a new set of 25 dividers so I can more effectively categorize my comics. I'm really super psyched on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing this for almost 6 years now.
Yeah.
That might be the most nerdy thing that's ever been said on this podcast.
Definitely up there.
What, the categorization aspect?
Yeah, also just the excitement over
Oh my
getting
God.
new dividers.
No, I got them in the mail today. And
Nice.
You didn't get new comics, you got new dividers.
no, well, Wednesday's new comic day, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I'm gonna, my goal is to build a shelf over there, like specifically
nice.
for the short boxes. And so they'll kind of slide in and out. And I need them to
Sweet.
be more organized because I have some longer boxes, but I want to get rid of those. Anyway,
Okay.
podcast.
To be fair, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
disparaging it. Like, I'm totally there with
Right. Yeah.
you. As obsessive comic book guys?
No.
No time.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right, so I'll bring us back in because it's my turn for my honorable mentions. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. And follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Fekkes, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!